All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics and Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. 16 years running. Y'all know if it's Friday, y'all know it's time for All Politics are Local. But more importantly, y'all know if it is the first Friday, y'all know it's time for Pastrami and Politics. With two of the most dynamic brothers from our community. They just on fire and ready to go. I was in the backstage with them a few minutes ago. I can't even handle the heat. I got to go get me a rag. I'm sweating already. So I'm anxious to hear from my brothers. I know you all are. So they're going to be up first for the first hour. Of course, you're going to get our brothers, Brother Rahaman and Alturrick. They'll come on, introduce themselves. They're the host of Pastrami and Politics. And one of the other things I want to say about their show, y'all never know who's going to pop in. These two brothers are extremely popular in our community. They all over the place.
Popular and connected.
So we never know who's going to pop in on these brothers. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be up first. And then, of course, what's coming up at 7, Zai?
Well, let me just have to start with the somber note. We just lost a great brother today. His name is Akil Bashir, Dr. Akil Bashir, Commander Akil Bashir. He is the internationally recognized trainer of what we call high-risk intervention and community-based violence intervention, and son of the Black Panther Party and the Nation of Islam from the best coast, that is the West Coast. He passed away today, and it has really hurt a lot of us. He has trained a lot of our best folks doing this work on the street throughout the country. He's a real pioneer. So I just want to acknowledge that great brother, friend, and comrade who just left us for the land of the ancestors. 7 o'clock, Professor Linda Carter. We have been trying to get her on to talk about the most recent attack on the Voting Rights Act. She is actually going to do that today. 7:30, right behind her, she also works with Public Square Amplified, and its founder, Josie Gonsalves, will be on at 7:30 to talk about their upcoming anniversary. Their 4th anniversary is next week, and her own evaluation of the elections and what that means, not just for our community on the electoral front, but also what that means for us in terms of Black journalistic spaces and places, right? Behind them, our ongoing conversation about our beloved fallen warrior, Assata Shakur, and the Cuban Revolution. Obi Egbuna Jr., who's based in D.C., young warrior with deep Pan-African roots from Zimbabwe, will join us, as will Baba Tony Menelik Vandermeer, right? And Baba Tony has recently called for an anthology dedicated to Assata. So we're going to have a very, very strong conversation there as well. So we got a loaded show, and we're ready to go.
Yep. And then, of course, up at 8:30 is going to be
our brother
DJ Rhino. We're going to talk a little hip-hop at about 8:30, kind of see what's going on in the land of hip-hop. Without any further ado, let's invite the men of the hour.
There they go. Yeah, what's going on, fellas? What's good? Do y'all hear me? He was saying. I got mine. I don't know. I'm at the deli, man.
He gonna torture us
on a nice onion roll too. You know, with my apple. You know what I'm saying? You know, So I don't know what he want me to do. Like mail him a sandwich or something like that. I don't. You know.
Yes.
He wants somebody to mail him a sandwich. You know, he was up in West Side today. He could have came by here. You know what I'm saying? He broke his neck to get up there. You know, get in pictures and stuff, but he ain't come down here. You know.
Absolutely.
What's going on, fellas?
Peace, man. Peace.
Good week.
Welcome to Pastrami and Politics, man.
Yes,
of course,
you
invited the one and only, our brother, our deputy mayor, of course, Rahaman Muhammad, and then of course to my left, your right, is our brother, the one and only Alturrick. What's up, brothers?
Sandwiches matter. That's what's up. Sandwiches matter, brothers. Sandwiches matter.
I think this is election matter, man. I think we want to get into the conversation. I think this past election was shellacking. I think it was a good. Like my slime. It was a good victory. for Mikey Sherrill, you know what I'm saying? But I think it's time that, you know, she won. I looked at the poll. I mean, after the election, I think we was 92% for black men, 95% for black women. I think total we was 20% of the electorate. And we gave total between black men and black women 95% of our vote.
Yeah,
95% of our vote through Mikey Sherrill. You know what I'm saying? 95% of our vote. I do like some of the things she said, you know what I'm saying, at her victory speech. I think she shouted out Newark, and I think that when she made the statement that she heard us, Newark, that, you know, everybody has to enjoy prosperity, something like that she said, one of those things she said. And I like the fact that she shouted out Akeem and the young crew that he had out there doing the knocking on the doors in the campaign. And so I did appreciate those things that she recognized that. And actually she said that on her victory night speech, which is great because, you know, that's where most of the attention at. So the fact that she said that was good. I think that's why it's important for individuals like myself to talk about the disparities that is in our community, because they need to hear us. You know what I'm saying? Now the question to me is like, what's going to happen? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, before you go, hold on, before you go into your.
I ain't finished, Al. Come on, bro. Let me finish. We gave 95% of our vote. You know, 95%. You know, there were individuals that did a great job, right? But I've seen this before. So I've been in politics for over 30 years. I've seen this before where we've given 95% of our vote, and we are either in the same position or worse than we were. And so I want to know, and I want to see the results of that 95%. Now, like I said, I heard what was said. I saw her in North today, which, like I said, the fact that she even came back to me shows that North is on her mind, which is important. Now we need to figure out, you know, what it is that the community needs and to make sure that those needs are addressed. All right, you can go.
Yeah, so I just want to just first of all, just say that Democrats throughout the country, you know, there was a mandate, you know, that I think President Trump always talks about, that there was a mandate on this Trump-led government that sort of changed a lot of, you know, Republican, you know, areas. You know, I know it's a lot of Republicans are saying, well, you know, Democrats only won their strongest base, which was California, New Jersey, and New York City. But you saw throughout the country, you know, congressional seats being flipped in Mississippi. You saw a lot of areas throughout the country where large Republican, you know, strongholds in the last election went towards the Democrats. And so I just wanted to say that this is more of a mandate election. You know, as they said in the Trump election, this is more of a mandate election, that people are tired of, you know, Trump politics, you know, from people not, you know, one, this government shutdown that is happening currently, to the rising cost of food, on, you know, what they call pocketbook issues, to now people are saying that you know, that they're not, you know, happy with ICE raids and things that happen internationally, whether people are being bombed, and being told that these individuals are drug smugglers, to now we're actually intervening in wars, or intervening in countries. Now the president's talking about going into Nigeria, you know, going into countries where he's using his military might to not focus on what's happening here in this country. And I think what happened in America, what happened in New Jersey, which people expected, which was a close election, didn't happen the way a lot of Republicans, even Democrats, said, you know, that it would happen, where people felt that it was going to be a much closer election. Some people even were saying Jack was going to actually win the election. But unfortunately, Republicans didn't have a, you know, great night, because this election happened at the wrong time for them. You know, while the government currently shut down, people are not eating, literally not eating. People are not literally getting paid for doing work, and jobs are being threatened, while, you know, health, you know, premiums are threatening to increase as well. And so I just wanted to say that I know Rahaman wanted to go into the issues that impact us directly in terms of, you know, issues that impact Black people specifically. But we did see happened, that didn't happen in the Trump election, that more Black men came out for this election, a higher numbers than the Trump election, and then Kamala Harris, which is, to me, is well, let's just say is a better thing to happen now than it happened before. But more people are coming out for this election. More people came out, especially Black and brown men. And it just shows that the issues that impact them directly, are important to them, that they made a decision to come out and vote Democratic. That was the decision that was made. And so Democrats had a huge night. But I know we want to have a conversation, like all that stuff sounds great, but what does it mean to us? Like, how does it impact Black people, Black families, specifically Black men? And how do we get a greater foothold in this new government for the next 4 years? And how can we get resources for our communities, and specifically with resources that impact us directly?
So the deal is that I think that the Mississippi races were legislative races, not congressional.
I meant to say, I apologize. Thank you for the question.
Yeah. But listen, it's clear that Trump scared the crap out of people, and I've been saying this for a while now. This guy is scaring people now. Pulling people out of cars, going to courtrooms, slamming women into the street. You got the Gestapo with the mask on. You're arresting people. You are. He just gave another pardon today to one of his friends. You're pardoning Republicans, and you are locking up Democrats, or you're charging Democrats with nonsense. Saying the government shut down, people holding food stamps, not even talking about what is about the health and healthcare. This guy is really going on TV talking about prices is down, which I'm telling you right now, prices is down. A case of lettuce for me has tripled. We used to be $19. It is now $62 because of these tariffs. Yeah, that's crazy. Exactly. So when people say prices is down, what prices is he talking about, right? And the average voter knows that. And listen, the voters in New Jersey spoke loud and clear. And listen, Black folk and Black men came back. You know what I'm saying? In droves. Black women has always been there for the Democratic Party, but Black men came back. Some Latino men came back. And some Latinos came back. Still not as high as African American votes, but it was better than it was last year, right? And so the question, though, is how is this going to relate to our community? I don't necessarily believe this is a new regime. I think it's a new governor. I think it's you're going to be dealing with some of the same Democrats that's been in office already, the same Democrats that's been in position already, and so. And she has to deal with them because they got the experience. She's not going to bring all new people around her. So the question is, though, what are we going to get? I see the Black Agenda meetings that is happening. But it seems to me that generally what happens after every election is that we do take care of a few Black and Latino folks, but it generally to be the people that's in the know, that's in the end, that's a part of the politics, that's part of the regime, that's that are operative. Those folks is going to be okay, but the community still suffers. And I'm saying I think that we have to be more aggressive as it pertains to Black folk and Latino folks getting our fair share. Right? We should not hear about 0.18% of state contracts anymore. Like that number had to be increased. And how do you increase that number, right? There has to be a plan on how that number increases. There shouldn't be, we shouldn't hear about that in the county. I'm gonna say it again. Joe DiVincenzo has rebuilt the county, which he's done a marvelous job. He's probably spent billions of dollars rebuilding this county with buildings and parks and a whole lot of things that he's done in this county. And I love it. I think he's done a great job. And I've always bragged about that work that he's done. But to see that we only got less than 0.5% of contracts from that makes no sense to me, right? And so we have to call that out. We cannot be afraid because we're part of a party to be silent about that. We can't pretend and smile up in folks' face and act like that's okay. You know what I'm saying? I heard individuals, certain individuals up in the county talking about we tired of rock. Tired of rock for what? Because I'm calling out your foolishness? Because I think that you should turn around here and do better when it comes to our community, when it pertains to getting our fair share, especially when you depend on our votes. What are you tired of? What are you tired of? I helped you get in office. I helped you get into the place where you at. I wasn't just a door knocker. You know what I'm saying? I was somebody that helped you build the table that you at. And you telling me that you tired of the fact that I'm calling out in the deficiencies, the disparities that's in our community? No, we have to do that. And if I have to be the person on my own to do it, I'm gonna do it without any fear. And don't care if you don't like it or don't like it. That's how I feel about the situation. What are we going to get? What are we going to be? Who are we holding accountable to make sure that African Americans and Latinos in this state, because you depend on our votes to maintain you in office? What are we going to get? What are we going to get for that? What are we going to get for that? And I'm not talking about myself, so I want to get that very, very clear. I've not asked none of these individuals for anything personal. I want to be very clear about that. You know what I'm saying? And if I just be a silent soldier and just not say anything, I promise you, and went and go ask, I promise you, I probably can get individually what I want. But that's not what I want. I'm good. Me and my family, we're gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? Because I've been a worker since I was 13 years old. I've been a hustler since I was a young man. So I'm gonna find my way. You know what I'm saying? I worked all my life. I'm gonna find my way. But there's a community out here. There are other people out here that need help. They need a leg up. What are we gonna do? What programs are we gonna put in place to ensure? What are we gonna do to make sure that individuals able to sign up to be minority contractors? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do to make sure that we help African American and Latino people get bonding so that they can get some of these contracts? Because that's how they keep us out of the contract.
Sure.
What are we gonna do for that? What programs are we going to implement? How are we going to help? What are we going to do to make sure that the banks open up? What are we going to do to make sure that the states start lending and come into our communities and make sure that if there are loans to open up small businesses, that we get our portion of that? What are we going to do about that? Those are the questions I want to have. I don't want to hear the same problems that we generally talk about in the African American community. I want to talk about economics and the fact that we shouldn't be in the position that our community is in, when folks depending on us to be in position so they can keep their community healthy. Well, what about our community? And someone has to sit up there and hold them accountable for that. And I'm older, I'm 57 years old. I'm on my way out the door. I am going to hold people accountable, and I don't care who don't like it. And you can say that I'm not being opposition to nobody. Congratulations, Mikey Sherrill. I am glad you won the governorship. Now I want something for my community. You know what I'm saying? I want something for my community.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that what's happening right now throughout the state is the United Black Agenda of New Jersey. I think is a start, right, to what Rahaman is talking about. How do we codify some of the issues that impact us, from fair housing, to economic opportunity? For me, it is personal. Like Rock, I do want to personally benefit, from this new administration. And I mean, simply means that if you're my neighbor and you're my friend and you're trying to get a contract with the state, I want that opportunity for you, right? And I want to be able to point across the street or point it to my community, say that person was able to get a contract with the state of New Jersey because they did the right thing and opportunity was open for them, and they were able to grow their business, in real time. I do want to ensure that we're able to get, a list of attorneys that, hey, if you're looking for an attorney general, there's a list of attorneys that are responsive to our communities, responsive to our needs. And these are individuals who have serviced our community for years, and they have a legal background, and they also have a moral conviction to ensure that they're able to provide sort of legal advice and services to our community. I want also, I live next to the port. I want to make sure that we have access, to those jobs that are next to the port, as well as some of the opportunities that come by way of the port, whether it's Port Newark or even the Passaic Valley Sewer Commission. Like, for me, it is personal. And I understand what Rock is saying. Like, we're good, but I'm not as good as I want to be. And so, I want our city to benefit from this government in the next 4 years. And I think the United Black Agenda is one start. And if anybody has interest, I would advise them to be a participant in this. UBA and J, they have a conversation throughout the state. They're codifying their public policy positions, and they're putting those positions in the hands of people who are able to do it. But I think to advance what Rock is saying is that we have to move beyond just simply putting stuff on paper. It's simply just having policy. We have to go into actionable steps. And I think that this may give us an opportunity to ensure that those things that we want are not just for the small few. Like I think what Rock was talking about, the political operatives who constantly feed off elections every year by year, but open that umbrella up to more people who are able to get those sort of opportunities that are not there. And like the state can do a better job than just 1.4% contractual opportunities. The federal government should have a better number than a Democratic state like New Jersey in terms of giving opportunity for people of color, specifically Black and brown businesses. And we also have to shrink the wealth gap between Black families and white families in the state of New Jersey, and where the wealth gap is more than almost $140,000 between Black families and white families. That can't exist, and this administration should be actively involved in shrinking that wealth gap, because opportunities that wasn't afforded to us should be afforded to us moving forward. And so, to Rock's point, it is personal. I want those things for my family, to my friends, for our community, and more resources have to come into our community, because we gave them the vote that made sure this administration remained a Democratic administration and remained in the hands of Black and remained in the hands of Black and brown local and statewide politics. So I think that has to happen that way.
But before we go any further, I want to let me just before you go, I just want to give credit to one. Let me. I meant to say this at the beginning, and that is to give credit to Mayor Baraka in the work that he did in helping Michael Sherrill get elected.
Absolutely.
I mean, he kept his word, and he went out. And one of the reasons why I kind of stepped back after my earlier post that I was making and questioning what was going on. One of the reasons I stepped back is because I seen how hard he was going for her, and I was like, what, this is what this brother want. Let him do it. I'm just gonna stay silent. That's why you see more of my AI videos going up than anything else. And so I want to give credit to that brother, because he definitely did. NOCA had the highest turnout it's had since 2005. He went out there across the state. He did commercials. He did everything. He kept his word. Yep. He said, "I'm going to support the Democratic candidate." He not just supported her, but he actively went out there to make sure that she won. And so that's important, because a lot of people turn around and say they're going to support the candidate, right? But very few actually. I mean, look at Steve Phillips said he would support the Democratic choice. He didn't go out there and actively, make sure Michael Sherrill won. I don't know. I mean, was he even on the campaign trail? I don't. Did he endorse her? I don't even know if he endorsed her.
He got that huge job offer, and he
left. I don't even know if did he endorse her. I don't even know if he endorsed her. I don't even know if Steve endorsed her.
Brother, he did this.
Yeah. And so I mean, the mayor came, and I don't know. I'm trying to think that the other kid, did Steve Sweeney endorse her? Because I don't want to just call out Steve.
I don't remember. It maybe it's South Jersey, but I didn't hear anything throughout the state.
Or did the other guy? What's his name? What was his
Josh
name?
Gottheimer. Josh
Gottheimer. Gottheimer endorsed her. I'm talking about the brother that ran from the teachers union. Did he endorse her?
Steve Sweeney. Sean Spiller. I don't remember.
As many commercials, you think I will remember his name? As many commercials was up with this guy. I don't even know. But so and the mayor had made a statement during the debate, said that I'm gonna keep that word, but everybody up on this stage, I don't think they would do that. And he was absolutely correct. But he didn't just make an endorsement. He actively went across the state to make sure that Michael Sherrill would won. You know what I'm saying? And I hope she doesn't forget that. I hope the people, because she may not, but the people around her. Yeah. I want to be very clear, because it's never really the Michael Sherrills of the world, right? You know what I'm saying? It's really the people that be around you. You know what I'm saying? Most of the people that cause problems, division with the mayor and other people is the people around the mayor. It's not the mayor. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He would rather have unity. He would rather have conversation with people. But it's the people around that causes the disunity. And so I'm hoping that Michael Sherrill understands what Mayor Baraka did and helping her win this election, and she don't forget that, and he has a direct contact to her, and he don't have to go through people, what I'm saying, to get something done for his city. And so I just wanted to give him credit for that, because I think that brother did a lot of work, and I promise y'all, what I'm saying, he's the reason why you saw AI videos up there, what I'm saying, then because that brother was out there, and I was like, what, I'm not gonna try to step on that brother's shoes. You know what I'm saying? That brother.
Let me also add it. Let me ask
Yeah.
one more. Let me ask also. I want to since we recognize it, I want to also recognize our new assembly person, Chikozie Onyenwu. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that brother is he's going to do some great work in the
I
state of
agree.
New Jersey. You talking about a progressive who can organize, who's smart, and also he's a bison. I mean, this brother is
We don't know about the bison part, but okay, the other part.
brother. Except that your wife is HBCU graduate, so you're going to accept that part, there, brother. But anyway, I think that brother, and his progressive agenda, that brother is going to do some amazing work in the state of New Jersey. And I think that as he continue to organize, with that turnout he had in the West Ward, with Governor Wes Moore coming to the state of New Jersey, with Mayor Ras Baraka and Mikey Sherrill. I mean, I think that we have something big that's going down to the into the Trenton, and I think this guy's going to do some phenomenal work. The other thing I want to do is recognize two more people. Leroy Jones, obviously, for leading a winning campaign, but not
no
just
question.
for that. I got to recognize what he actually did, because sometimes we talk about being young in politics. Black men specifically don't get opportunities. And I want to say that when he gave the opportunity for Akeem Cunningham to lead the organization in the county of Essex, that's big, because
Yes.
this election was going to impact nationwide. And for the strongest Democratic threshold in the state of New Jersey is Essex County. And to put it into the hands of a 34-year-old Akeem Cunningham, I just think that was a big move on behalf of the Democratic Party. That's how you prepare leadership for the next phase of their opportunities. And he demonstrated, he showed improved. That's my brother. I watched that brother lose an election in East Orange. Well, when he ran for council against Chris James in 2008, he lost the election, but he organized and knocked on so many doors. He walked into the headquarters, told them, listen, I lost, but I want to congratulate Chris and congratulate the Democratic Party. And they remembered that moment, because rarely do people actually do a concession, speech, and directly shake the hands of the new winner. We were still waiting for that to happen in the Central Ward in Newark, but we're sure that's going to happen. And then what happens is after that, they kept in contact with Akeem. Akeem became a part of the organization, and that brother has done some amazing things. So I just wanted to make sure I give a shout out to Akeem Cunningham. That's my brother. Congratulations! And finally, we were able to get our assemblywoman back into office. We need our standard bearer. We think Cleopatra Tucker is going to continue to do some great work. By legislative districts. I just wanted to give her a shout out as well.
Yep. So what I wanted to contribute was two things. One is, Rock, when you make all those statements about, what are we going to get? I think one of the mistakes we always make is that we say this after the fact, right? I think that the conversation should be had before, right?
Yes.
Because now, we're trying to play catch up, and we have to hope that these people are going to take meetings from us, right?
Yes.
One of the things I said to the mayor at about, maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, I congratulated him, because I know, just like you, Rock, he pushed me to vote in that direction, right? Because you remember we were sitting there having a conversation at the deli, and, we were like, we understood what the game was, but at the end of the day, the question always is, what are we going to get? What are our people going to get? Right? And now we don't know if those meetings are going to happen. We don't know that. We don't know if, these people that are being put in position, if those people, really understand how she got there, right? And who really went on the ground and did the kind of work that was necessary to do. So I don't know that. But like you just stated, Alturrick, when we talk about the Black agenda, is a conversation that, yes, was being had right after the mayor, lost the primary. But the problem is that we weren't in those meetings with Mikey Sherrill, right? Saying, well, let's put, we always say, let's put together these 4 or 5 things. Rock, you've always been talking about, at least I know when I talk to you, what is the business community going to get? How are we going to help, create more businesses? I haven't heard those kind of things. I don't even know. Do we have a Black business czar? Right? I don't know. And that's something that should have been, discussed, right? At least just saying, okay, well, we might not get 4 or 5 things, but can we get one thing? And I think that, like you said, Rock, I think we have to have real conversations, right? And I'm sorry if some of this is going to hurt some of these folks' feelings, but we need to have these conversations, right? We obviously had the power to turn the vote because she won Essex County big, right?
Yes,
we had to win Essex County in order to win, right? But that again goes to the organization under our brother Mitty Baraka, right? That goes toward that. But at the end of the day, we also have to look at, the work that was done by the mayor with all of the campaigning around the state and what he did. Okay, but now here we go, Mark. You asking the question: what are we going to get?
Well, to me, the question too, it can't be with the same people in the room that always talk about the black agenda. I'm telling you, I started politics in 20. You know how many meetings I've been? Zaid probably noticed. So he's probably been in some of the same meetings. You know how many meetings I've been to that talk about the black agenda? And I mean, we've had these black agenda meetings since I've been involved in politics. We always come out with an agenda, but we don't generally get the results. And so, and so having a meeting talking about the black agenda to me is not new. There's nothing is different about that. What has to be different about that is that we have to have different people in the room talking about what that black agenda is. It have to be like the regular mom and pop and Joe Blow young folk that's out in the community. It can't be the same political operative like myself and other folks who are generally always at these meetings talking about this stuff amongst themselves. Who are we adding new to this equation? You know what I'm saying? Because you, to me, cannot have a serious black agenda unless you're talking about what they need. Because I used to tell people all the time, I think it's arrogant of anybody to tell me about a black agenda only because my agenda might not be yours. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can you come up with a black agenda for me? How can you sit up in a room and tell me that you're going to come up with a black agenda for the entire black community? That to me does not work. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out, like, the conversation has to be about, we know what our community needs. And to be honest with you, we need to, on this time around, talk about economics, folks. We need to talk about economics. I was listening to the young lady, what's her name? Abby Phillips. She did this book on Jesse Jackson, right? And I was listening to her, right? And I was listening to some speeches that Jesse did back in I was too young to pay attention back then. And to be honest with you, I was doing some other things that I shouldn't have been doing back then. So I really wasn't paying attention. But I was listening to some of the his speeches, and the things that he was saying was pretty much, listen, we have social programs. That's in a nutshell is what he was saying. I'm not quoting him word for word here, but he was saying that we have these social programs. We have these things. We need to talk about economics and how do we benefit our community with economics. And it seems to me that the community generally continuously talk about this social, the community generally still talk about this social aspect of what we need in our community. And then we miss out too much on the economics of what we need. And we really do need to start focusing on about the economics so we can get our people out the conditions that we are in. We need to get more people in our community out of the situation that they're in. And it's only going to happen through economics. That's the only way it's going to happen.
So here's my pushback, Rock. I think that we have to give Mayor Baraka at least some credit, for discussing, Black, issues beyond just the surface level jobs and just, economic opportunity. He started talking about, let's delve deeper into the numbers and how we got there in Newark, how we can be the model for the state of New Jersey. And I think that's something you have to give Baraka, Mayor Baraka credit, because it didn't just come out of nowhere. So in the Democratic Party, there would be no conversation of black maternal health if it was for Mayor Baraka putting that on the agenda, right? There would be no conversation about the disparity study that happened in the state of New Jersey if it wasn't for Baraka putting that on the agenda. It wouldn't be talking about how do we create more wraparound programs rather than the overcriminalization of black and brown boys and men in the state of New Jersey if it wasn't for Mayor Baraka and other elected officials throughout the state who said we have to do more than just that. And so I sort of trust, the situation that's happening right now where we have elected officials who are tapped into our community, who are saying that we have to have a more holistic conversation about some of the issues impacting our cities throughout the state. And I think that that's what makes Baraka's representation at these tables much more different. And so we have to have conversations with elected officials, representatives, our Congress people, even everyday folks like that Rahaman discussed. But we also trust that elected officials are doing right on our behalf, and not on behalf of just a few, or behalf of just themselves. And I think Baraka, who is now looked upon as the more conscious of the Democratic Party, because as we saw in this election, that Black women and Black elected and the Black electorate always enforce the moral compass, of the electorate, when it goes in a different direction, and has been demonstrated based on the high number of folks who came out in this election, and also the percentages that came out who happen to be Black men and women. And so I look at it much differently, and I think that we have to continue having conversations, because I haven't been a part of this conversation that Rahaman talked about. I haven't been invited to a Black agenda meetings in years past. In fact, I didn't even know they existed. But now it does exist. Now we have an opportunity to add our voice as to what our agenda should look like. But the other thing, Rock, we have to start codifying. We have to start writing down exactly what we want. And we have to say, this is what we want. And we have to hold people accountable to the things that we want them to have, but also we have to work with them to get to that particular end goal as well. And we can't expect her to determine what we want. We have to make sure we determine to them what we are asking for and what we demand as well.
Al, I just want you to know we're in trouble. That's all. I just got a phone call. We're in trouble.
What did we do? What did you do this time,
Missed the fight. We missed
tonight. Tonight?
Yeah,
I didn't get an invitation for a fight tonight.
Yeah, we did.
Tonight in Atlantic
But anyway,
City?
I mean, I just had to apologize for both of us, brother. But I'm gonna move on from that because.
I feel so after this tomorrow.
But, so listen. I don't want to listen. So we clear. I don't want to people
economics, sir.
That. Yeah. I know, right? I don't want people to misunderstand. I don't want to criticize anybody's meetings and their agenda. I'm just saying that I've been through these meetings for a long period in my life, and I've seen the results of these meetings. And to me, that unless we are going to open the conversation up to a more broader audience, if we're going, the thing that the Mayor Baraka was successful about with the men's meeting in the city of Newark is that it was open up just to the regular Joe and Smo. It was just open up to Northers, period. You didn't have to be in the in crowd to come to those meetings. So that was what made his meeting successful. But right now, it seems like the meeting invitations that go out to the people in the end. So the only people that are aware of those meetings happen to be the people that are on the inside. And to me, you have to do a much better organizing to get folks that's just regularly businesses. I mean, we should go up and down the street and talk to the people in the barbershops and the small businesses, those that's contractors, and bring them up in the room and tell them what are they looking for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What are they looking for, right? So you have to just get the average individual into those rooms to talk about what they want. Right? It can't be us. It can't be the same folks that's been in those rooms. I've been in those rooms a long time. The results of those meetings to me have not been successful. I've seen a bunch of them. You know what I'm saying? I've been a part of a bunch of them. And the results have not been successful. We have to talk about economics in our community. We have to talk about that. And it is 2025. You know what I'm saying? This is something that Jesse was talking about in 1988. We should already be there, halfway there at least. The problem is that we're not even a quarter there. We are 0.5%, folks. We're 0.5%. Like, I mean, this is like this, we cannot maintain a community when we're locked out of the majority of the economics in that community. You can't maintain a community like that. I say this all the time. You can't name a community in America in America where white folks are the majority and black people get the majority of the business. You can't name that community in America. It don't exist. It don't exist. And if it did exist, they would have already burnt it down. You know what I'm saying? They would have already burnt it down. We cannot maintain a community where we are locked out of the things that makes a community what it is. We have to be part of what makes Montclair what Montclair is. We have to be part of what makes Bloomfield what Bloomfield is. We have to be part of what makes Verona what Verona is. We have to be part of what makes Clifton what Clifton is. Those things are there because a lot of those people are business owners. A lot of those people are entrepreneurs. A lot of those people are part of the economic structure that lets them maintain their community. You cannot lock out a community in urban communities, lock out the people in that community from their ability to be able to bring their community up to those standards and then turn around and complain about how the community looks. You cannot maintain a community like that, folks. We should not be dependent so much on others to take care of us. And unfortunately, it happens that way because we are not addressing what the real needs are. And that is that we got to be part of the economics, period.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're right about that, Rock. But let me say in defense of those Black Agenda meetings that they've been having, I've been to all of them except one that Reverend Charles Boyer have organized along with the mayor, and they are open to the community, right? So I've seen the community come out, voice their opinions. I've seen them have conversations and dialogues. And the last one that we had in Jersey City, that which was, and it was packed. I mean, the people are there. So the mayor has attracted, all of those, primarily a lot of those folks who supported him in the primary. So, but again, the majority of our folks don't necessarily come out to meetings. I mean, that's one of the issues we have. And when you talk about business, most of us, Rock, don't really have that kind of background, and we're not really having those kind of discussions on how do we put people in business. Yeah, the mayor's trying to do that with the men's meetings, right, by inviting people to come in. The first lady is doing that with the women's meetings and, trying to introduce that and get folks to do it. But the problem is still, we have that hesitation because, one, we don't know how to get started. That's one. Two, and then if we do get started, remember, it's about financing, right? Being able to teach people those things. And you already know, Rock, when you get in business, there's a process to stay in business, right?
No question.
So all of those things have to be taught to our people. But the problem is that we aren't doing it. That's why, Rock, one of the things I suggested the last time, we were at the restaurant with you, myself, Zaid, and the chief and Bashir. I said, listen, we should hold some meetings up at the deli, right? Have some folks come through. Let's sit down. Let's have some conversations. And now, we have the ability, we have the equipment where we can take this stuff and go live, right, and broadcast it, to our community and have those kind of conversations. But we are, I think, at least, that we have all the talent that we need, right? The problem is, in my mind, at least, we still have a major trust factor, right?
Yes.
I think we still have a major trust factor for one another. Just like, people are giving you pushback, Rock, for whatever you may be saying, but you're not saying these things in a vacuum. I mean, you saying these things openly because these are real concerns with our people, but we've got to get beyond those things and say, well, how do we move forward in order to move the agenda so that the masses of our people, right, move forward? But it's got to be a conversation that we've got to have, and we can't care about who is listening, but we've got to care about making sure that the people that are in the room or the people that can do something to make the changes that we need to be making.
But you know what's crazy to me, though, Ed, is that most of the pushback I get is from my own people.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's people that because they have access, they don't want to threaten their access. So they're afraid to say something. You know what I'm saying? And so, that's the most push. That's the most push that I've gotten back from anybody. Like, I got to be honest with you. Other folks come to me and say, "Rock, you're right." You know what I'm saying? This had to be fixed. You know what I'm saying? But in my own community, I get pushback. It's crazy. Back in the day, Steve Audubon used to have a dinner with the Italians and the Irish, and they used to call it, I think it was St. Joseph and St. Thomas dinner. I think that's the name of the dinner. I know exactly what it was, but I think that's the name of the dinner. But generally, what it was because in Essex County there was always this competition in those two communities. They would hold this dinner to kind of unify one another, even after election, to say, hey, you know what I'm saying, listen, we may not all agree, or we may be on the opposite side, but you know what, we still need to take care of one another. You know what I'm saying? We still need to be unified. You know what I'm saying? And we have to do more of that in our own community. We can't turn around because somebody else is mad at me and you mad at me because they mad at me. You know what I'm saying? We just can't have that. You know what I'm saying? We can't turn around and have other people, you know what I'm saying, talking about our community because there are people that want to stand up for our community, and then we take on their beef because you are in the know, or you're in that, you know what I'm saying, in the circle that you don't want to turn around here and cause any friction because I don't care about those things. I don't. I've been doing this a lot. I use my positions all my life to help people. I benefited from it because at the end of the day, I had a job and I was doing the work that I was doing. My boss used to say to me all the time, Rock, they're going to take care of you or they're going to take care of the people. They're not going to take care of both. That's what my mentor used to say to me. They're either going to take care of you or they're going to take care of the people. He said, however, when you take care of the people, they're going to take care of you. And that's what's happened for me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. The reason why my business is successful in this community is because this community know me. I'm from this community. I opened up a business in my community. You know what I'm saying? The people that come up in here know that I'm a good dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, I help people. That's what I do. You know how many people come up in here that I help? You know what I'm saying? Like, I help people. That's just what I've always done. That's who I am as a person. So when I am fighting for something, I'm not generally, as much I know, I'll say, listen, I'm gonna benefit from it no matter what, because if my community do good, I'm gonna do good. I used to tell my union members during bad times that we had a saying that I used to have, what was it? Keep my neighbor working. I used to have these T-shirts that I used to give my union members during the budget crisis. They used to say, keep my neighbor working. And what that was about was I was trying to get my union members to understand that even if we're not affected by these cuts, your neighbor may be affected. And you cannot be the only person on your block working. You can't be the only one. Your family can't be the only one on the block eating. It can't be like that. You know what I'm saying? The whole block has to be able to eat. Everybody around you have to be able to enjoy their home and their space and to be able to live comfortable. And if that does not happen, guess who's coming to dinner? You know what I'm saying? Guess who's coming to dinner? You know what I'm saying? We have to fight to help keep our neighbors working. We have to fight to get our neighbors' business. Like what Alturrick said, our neighbors should have. I want to fight for my neighbors to have business. I want to fight for the person next door to me to open up a business next door to me. I want to turn around here and have someone take this empty lot and help them be able to build something so that it can make my business next door be much more attractive in the neighborhood, other than an empty lot sitting next to me. That's what I want. And if I can't do it, I want somebody else that look like me to be able to do that. And
I want the line.
And I'm not going. And yeah, I do too. So, but I'm not. And I'm not gonna. But I'm not gonna be ashamed to say that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna feel bad because I said that, because somebody don't like that I said that. I'm not gonna feel bad about that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not against any of these folks. I'm not against any of them folks, but I am for me and my people. Mm-hmm. And to me, when you're not giving to me and my people, then you're against me. You know what I'm saying? So we need to make sure that if you need us, if you need our vote, if you need us to be there for you, then you need to act like it. And you need to help us, and not to turn around and keep doing this little on the margin type of helping out our community, to pretend that you're doing something when we really, when the disparity stuff come out, is not there.
You know, with Rockman, it's interesting because I was actually looking at some of the boards and commission that's coming up And the question is like, what can we do immediately in terms of holding the governor accountable and making sure that we get people who are in positions to serve as our people to ensure that they have those opportunities. I was just looking at a few boards, this Casino Revenue Board, the Banking Advisory Board, the Blue Cross board, there's so many boards, the banking and the banking and regulatory board. There's so many boards that impact the state of New Jersey. If you look through the boards, we need to make sure that we have representation. The people who are attending those Black agenda meetings, and if they're qualified and they're great people who serve as our communities, those individuals should be listed as some of the recommendations for the boards that service our state. And we have to make sure that we create that list of individuals who are able to do the sort of good work that we want them to do and put them in positions of power and to represent our issues, because the question becomes, like, who are having conversations about a small business like Rahaman, who opened up in the city of Newark and say, here's my issue, and this is what's affecting my everyday costs, whether it could be the increase of the PSA energy bills, how tariffs are impacting my ability to buy cabbage, which impact my ability to buy lettuce, which is increasing my prices, and is making me decide whether I can keep people employed at my small business or not, right? And so, like, if you look at these sort of boards, are those individuals are directly impacting people, and when they make decisions on a day-to-day basis, like how many people actually take the train who are on the Port Authority board, right? They actually use mass transportation. How many people will live in the city of Newark, which actually is impacted directly, by high pollutants, some of the waste that's coming off of the shipping, terminals. How is that actually, are there people who are on the boards that's going to actually say, well, we have to look at these sort of changes of having at the port, whether it's dredging to increase, a foothold or not, and how does it impact the residents of the city of Newark? We talk about the Waterfront Commission. How many Newark residents, are on the Waterfront Commission were able to say, well, you guys are doing a hiring, in for the port, in these positions. Well, how many residents for the city of Newark are represented at the port? And those are sort of things, like if we go into the port or whatever those commissions might be, the Turnpike Authority, like if we increase the toll and increase the prices, how does that impact our residents on a day-to-day basis? And I hope that list of individuals who are coming out to those meetings with the Black agenda are saying, well, here's our recommendations. If they can't be your attorney general, they can't be your chief of staff or, whatever, we need to make sure that these individuals are put into positions where they're placed on the board of King University or University Hospital, or the Casino Revenue Board. Like, we need to make sure that those individuals are on those boards, and where we are able to say, well, and when the pension, the New Jersey pension, board makes, financial investments, we make sure those investments happen in our community. Or at least have that conversation, because we're just not in those rooms at all. Literally, we're not in those rooms at all. But the resources are directly coming from out of our community as well, and they're just not rotating back as frequent as they should. So I think that's the sort of like list that I think that the Black agenda should be, or if they should be creating, and now those are the names of individuals who will make those metrics to make sure that we're able to get tangible, qualitative change in our community, in our spaces as well.
Did we overtalk Zahid?
All that you say is right and exact, brother Alturrick. But the problem is that we should be having those conversations beforehand, right?
That's true.
I agree.
Not now, right? Because those people don't have any obligation to do any of those things, right? Because that's why Rob is asking the question, what is our people going to get? If we'd had these conversations beforehand, we know what we were gonna get, right? We don't know now.
So we actually had a conversation before when Phil Murphy was in office, before his second term. But again, every election should have consequences. And so I think what Rahaman is talking about, like, when do you implement the consequence, right? So we want to get this Democrat in office, but we don't want to lose the ability to have a voice in that elected position to make sure that we're able to get those individuals, in positions of power to make sure they will do right on behalf of our community. And we just haven't had that sort of reciprocity that's critically important. And I think that's kind of where the power comes in, is that we need to hold people accountable. And if sometimes you have to step away from an election, or run your candidate, whether it's in the primary and in the general, you just have to run your candidate in the primary and in general.
Zaid, I'm sorry. Did we overtalk you, brother? Were you trying to say some stuff, man? Because
no, y'all on a roll. I appreciate what you're saying. I was actually going to, and we are up against the clock, so I wasn't going to jump in really now. But let me just ask this, and of course, Alturrick is still advocating his hashtag, right? One of the things that I was surprised about, and I want y'all your take on it, and we can put our own biases aside if that's possible, right? Was how close the Central Ward race became. I was terribly surprised about that. I really thought Amina Bay would win it going away, but now we're in a situation where we got this neck and neck situation with an old guard person, and I'm being diplomatic in this. I have nothing against Gail Cheneyfield and Amina, who represents another arm of the Baraka machine coming forward, right? Straight out of a long track record of community service. What's y'all take on that?
So let me jump in first. Can I jump in first, Rock? Because you're probably going to have a better point than I am. I just want to say that the Cheneyfield family has done some amazing work in the city of Newark, right? And their name and the work that they've done with New Community Corporation and in our community has gone back far and long. And so this young lady is an extension of that. And she has done her own work in her own, on the council. And when she ran for mayor, she was a credible candidate. And so she is known, right? That's a name and to a lot of people, that's a name you trust. And so it was a hard election because you had somebody who was extremely known. And in Amina, you have to know because she's always been in the background and people would see the impact of her, but they didn't know exactly where it came from. So you see, food being delivered, but you don't know who actually made that decision. You see jobs being created, but you don't know who made that decision. And that was Amina Bay in the background making that thing happen. So that was my take on it. Gail is a great candidate. In any year, it would be hard to beat a Cheneyfield because she's just that type of person, and she spoke to the issues that she was passionate about, and people felt, the issue that she was talking about was tangible to them. And so, I didn't think it was going to be that sort of wide gap. In fact, it could win in a different direction, but we're happy for Amina.
Listen, I told Amina when Gail first put her name in the race. I had a meeting with Amina, and I said this is going to be very difficult to beat Gail Cheneyfield. She's been running since 1995. Her name ID is out there. Her father was the president of the union that I took over. You know what I'm saying? The Cheneyfield name is huge. You know what I'm saying? She was the council at large. She was the council of the Central Ward. Like Al said, she ran for mayor. She has a lot of inroads inside of the senior communities. So I'm not surprised. I got to be honest with you. I wouldn't even been surprised if she would have won. I got to be real, and I said this to, Amina. Now, it's not, you have to get out here as a new voice and trying to get new name identity. We have to build a movement behind you. And we did. You know what I'm saying? She went into the Muslim community. And believe me when I tell you, Zaid, the thing that put her over the top was the Muslim community. I'm telling you that right now. The fact that she went up there and energized Muslims that probably wouldn't have voted. A lot of you and I both know we Muslims. So you know that we generally, a lot of them sit down. I mean, I'm in politics, so I do it. But a lot of Muslims sit back. They don't think, they don't exactly. We don't generally participate in the electoral process, right? You know what I'm saying? So she went out there and created a movement within the Muslim community that Muslims actually came out and rallied with her and actually came out and voted. So you know what I'm saying? And I think that's what put her over the top. So I'm not surprised that the race was this close. I'm not. I'm gonna be honest with you. The good thing about it is that she go in as an incumbent. She can go and show who she are. Her name ID will be better so that when she run in May, she has a better opportunity. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be more difficult to beat Amina the next time around in May than it was. This was if you was going to beat Amina, this was the time you had to beat her. She's a worker, just like LaMonica. I promise you that Amina is going to get out there and she's going to work and build her. She's going to use these next 6 months to build her name ID. So it's going to be very difficult to beat her. Listen, I tell people, because I want to be very clear, y'all. Listen, I was torn. I supported Amina. Listen, Gail supported Amina too at first. So be clear, she came to 2 of Amina's fundraisers. I was happy to see Gail when she came to Amina's fundraiser. I don't know what changed Gail's mind. I don't. And I tell people this all the time because I don't dislike Gail. Like, I don't, you can't. Gail's been a friend of mine for decades. You know what I'm saying? She's been like a big sister to me. Her and Bessie Walker has been like big sisters to me for decades. I don't have this hatred in my body for her. You know what I'm saying? So I told Mina, like when people was talking about like this, run a respectful campaign because we got relationships and friendships, and we want to maintain those relationships, friendships after this election is over too. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to win going into the gutter. We don't have to do those things. And unfortunately, there were people out here that was trying to take people into that direction. And I am glad that Amina did not buy into that nonsense. I'm so glad that she didn't do it because she won on her merits, and she won based on the fact that she ran a respectful campaign. And I really appreciate the fact that she stayed poised and she didn't go out there saying no derogatory stuff about Gail, and she turned around and she won. And I will hope that both of them would, you know what I'm saying, get together. And even if Gail decides to run the next time, that at least they understand that it's respect. You know what I'm saying? The campaign is over. Let's move forward. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want people to believe that you can't be friends with people because you're on the opposite side of their politics. That's not true. I disagree with Gail running for the Central Ward, especially when she supported Amina from the beginning. I disagree with that. But that don't stop me from being friends with Gail. That don't stop me from liking Gail. I have no hatred in my body for Gail for running for office. I don't have that. You know what I'm saying? Amina won, and God bless her. She's going to go out here. We got a Muslim now on the count. Folks, we have a Muslim elected to the North City Council. A lot of Muslims in this town should be joyous about that because we are probably one of the biggest Muslim populations in the country. You know what I'm saying? Or at least, you know what I'm saying, first generation Muslims in the country. When I'm talking American Muslim, let's talk about American Muslim. You know what I'm saying? And we've always supported other people in their campaigns, but we never actually had one of our own sitting on that council. And now we have one on that council. So we should be proud of that. And we there now, and we need to keep her there. And I'm sure with the work that she's going to do, she's going to remain there.
And let's not forget that Newark is a very important Muslim community. Very important. And moving Islam forward.
Always has been.
Yep. So
and
listen.
And before you leave, with that being said, is she's also at the same time that the first Muslim mayor was elected in New York. She's the first Muslim person elected. Didn't you say that last time, Alturrick?
Yeah.
She's the first Muslim elected in Newark, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, she is.
Yes, she is. On the city council. Yes.
So
let me also add one more thing too. Is that I gotta say this? I'm married. She's also a member of Delta Theta Sigma and the fiery flames of fortitude. Did I say that?
You said DST.
No, it's DST. And so she's my sister. She's my wife's line sister. And by default, that means she's my sister. So I just want to make sure I give her line, credibility because, the Muslims out there and also those sisters was out there from start to finish. And they're going to be out there going forward with her as well.
I tell you, Al, you know how to start fights at the end of the show.
I should have said that to myself.
We want to thank you, brothers, for coming on and doing Pastrami and Politics. I'm gonna give y'all the last word, man. So, and Rock, listen, man, I'm getting texts. People said they need to know the address to the rest of the delegate.
16 Urban Turner Boulevard.
Oh, here we go. All right, man. So listen, Rock, want to thank you and Alturrick for coming through. Thank you for the conversation. Listen, man, can't wait for next week. I'm steady getting texts, man. People love the show. Thank y'all very much, man.
Next month.
All right,
next month.
Appreciate y'all. See y'all next month, man. Peace.
Sandwiches. We want sandwiches. Take care. Peace. Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam. All right, y'all.
Is Professor Carter here?
She was. I saw her.
Oh, she should be on. Yeah, because there she goes.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
Yes.
Hey,
All right,
Professor.
clock was ticking. Clock was ticking.
All right, Professor.
I had
Class
to
is
leave.
in session.
I had to leave a client my money.
Uh-oh.
Well, let's get to it.
All right.
And not hold you beyond your means and your needs. Now you have been back and forth in several conversations that have gone a number of different ways, and a lot of course, on the election. But I had been trying to get you here to come back to talk about a very serious space that we're in around the Voting Rights Act, and to, basically give a 101 class in just what the Voting Rights Act was, what happened to the Voting Rights Act recently at the Supreme Court level, and what is threatening the Voting Rights Act now. And there's a case coming out of Louisiana, and I want to mispronounce it, Louisiana versus Callis, that is aiming squarely at what is known as the second point of the Voting Rights Act. We want you to give us a real breakdown of come on in.
As a matter of fact, I saw something that really captures it. Balls and Strikes is a publication deeply rooted in the nation's history and tradition. It's a new publication, but they did an excellent job, and I thought I would share with people because it gives the details. I would encourage people, after I do this, I would encourage you to look at, there was something on Democracy Now! About Chief Justice Roberts, because he's been the architect of tearing this down. And so, and the other part, just, afterwards, I had time, what can we do? Because at the end of the day, we can't depend on the courts anymore, right? And actually, the only people we could really depend on, and the ACLU says this all the time, because they seem to be the only ones who have the courage to go in and do what they're supposed to do as lawyers, is at the end of the day, it's about the American people, period. The American people. I just left France. And one of the things about France is that when you don't do right by the French people, they shut the place down.
They turn out, yes.
Right? And when you talk about Italy, you talk about Greece, they shut the place down. We still waiting for somebody to come to save us. So that's a problem. So anyway, let me do this real quick because this is really good. I'm like really impressed. So Louisiana Callis gives Justice Roberts the chance to complete decades of long ideological projects since he served as the clerk to Rehnquist several decades ago. All right. This past October 15th, the Supreme Court heard arguments Louisiana versus Callis and Robinson versus Callis, a pair of consolidated cases that threaten what little remains of the federal government's ability to protect voters from racial gerrymandering under the Voting Rights Act from 1965. The Voting Rights Act in 1965, a federal law that finally effectuated the 15th. In other words, what it did is implement the 15th Amendment of the Constitution that guaranteed that the government would not deny or abridge the right to vote on account of race. President Johnson, as most of you know, signed the act following years of advocacy from the civil rights activists and decades of violent repression of those rights by white supremacists. Without exaggerating, the Voting Rights Act allowed the United States to make its first plausible claim to being a multiracial democracy. Opponents of the multiracial democracy led by Chief Justice John Roberts have fought against the Voting Rights Act ever since, misconstruing the act's substantive protections and making them impossible to enforce. Callis is the conservative legal movement's latest vehicle to persuade the court to render the greatest triumph of the civil rights movement a nullity nationwide. In 2022, Louisiana Republican lawmakers enacted a congressional map that packed Black Louisianas into one district and cracked them across 5 others, meaning it was just very little Black people named. Now, mind you, Louisiana has 1 out of 3 people living in Louisiana are Black people. This means out of 6 districts, only 1 is majority Black, even though 1, again, and 3 people in Louisiana are Black people. Under the Voting Rights Act, voters of color must have an equal opportunity, according to the Voting Rights Act, to elect candidates of their choice. But voting in Louisiana is racially polarized, meaning that the white majorities persistently vote as a bloc to defeat candidates whom Black voters would prefer. To date, the state has never had a Black senator and hasn't elected a Black governor since Reconstruction in the 1800s. And no Louisiana congressional district other than the single majority Black district has elected a Black representative. Thus, the only way that Black Louisianans would have the equal opportunity to vote the Voting Rights Act requires is if Louisiana were to create a second district in which the Black Louisianans make up the majority. Black voters in Louisiana sued, and the federal courts determined that the gerrymandering map, indeed violates Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and ordered lawmakers to withdraw the map and add a second majority Black district. But then a group of self-described non-African American voters sued to challenge that map, arguing that the map drawn to remedy an illegal racial gerrymandering is itself illegal racial gerrymandering.
i.e. reverse discrimination.
Right. In other words, you can't try to correct something that was racial.
Correct a racial wrong with a racial right.
Right. Which doesn't make sense. However, just as an aside, but you could snatch up Black immigrants and brown immigrants. So when it comes to hurting people, it's okay.
El Salvador.
Right. But when it comes to helping people, it's not okay. If the Supreme Court agrees that there's no legal distinction between causing and curing race-based harm, callous would rob actual victims of discrimination of legal tools to do anything about it. The court heard arguments, as I said, for the first time, March 2025, and considered two main questions. First, whether Louisiana lawmakers let racial considerations predominate when they drew the second map, and if so, whether they had good reason for doing so. Under existing law, there are easy questions to answer. Even if Louisiana lawmakers draw the second map based on race, the Supreme Court's precedent confirms courts told us to fix our illegal racist maps. It's a damn good reason to do so. But the Republican justice on the court do not like the existing law, and now they're rehearing the case so they can have a chance to change it. Keep in mind, Supreme Court Justice Roberts, and you really need to look at his background, aside from the fact that he was so responsible, the first major hit to Section 2. And so they reheard the case, and basically the chances are it's not going to survive. But how they frame it in the media, right? Whether it's the corporate media across the board, I don't care if it's liberal or if it's conservative or MAGA, how they frame it is going to be important, because that's going to shape how the public sees this, right? They're not going to say, oh, it's illegal to use race to repair race. This is like interesting, but at the end of the day, it always comes back to civics. You don't think that they removed civics from the urban schools during the migration from the South for no reason, right? A lot of things we're seeing, and I just heard something the other day, and I wish I had the citation. I'll try to get it and send it to you. You can share it with people. But there's a new take on, not a new take, a really hard look at Project 2025. And I can't stress it enough. People have all this angst over what's going on. I see things, people send me little things that are happening around. It's the big picture, right? If you haven't read those 887 pages, you're not interested in knowing what the game plan is. And as I said the last time, the game plan has been in effect since the 1960s when the heroin came to the community. And then when the crack came to the community, right? And then you have papers like the Powell Memorandum, yes. Or you have, what's the other paper? Crisis and Democracy, which was a response to the women's movement, the Black Power movement, the Civil Rights movement, the anti-war movement, right? These papers were written in the 1970s. These people are not playing. They've been mad at Franklin Roosevelt for creating Social Security and unemployment for 90 years, right? This is not new. And so, one is I encourage, and again, I'll send it to you. I'll see if I can pull it up and just text it if I can. But basically, there's 100 and some odd companies, of which many of the audience and many Black folks are probably buying products from, people who are acting against your interests. It's this, the take on it is, I think it's 500 pages review, and they're focusing on 60 of the over 100 companies that are involved in Project 2025. And it's funny to me because first time I heard a Democrat in Congress on C-SPAN even say anything about 2025 was December during Christmas on C-SPAN in 2023. And these people have been planning this for longer than some of you have been alive. So, you know, I say with regard to the court case, chances are they're going to figure out a nice way to get rid of it, or it'll be like a string hanging, just a little string left of the case, if anything, right? And so what do? One of the things I was listening to people talking about, you know, your previous guests talking about the election. We got to make people accountable, and we can't wait until they get in office. I'm looking at Cheryl. I'm looking at all these people who are elected. What did we do before when they started running to say what we wanted? I can tell you that everybody else, right? Everybody else, and I've been to meetings where it was Corzine. That was the last meeting that I went to, and all the Black folks were there. All the lawyers were there, right? At this meeting with Corzine. By the time we got to that meeting, they already decided other people already decided what they're going to get from Corzine. And so we're waiting till after the fact. We got to start making moves. You want us to support you, you got to give us something in writing ahead of time that we could put out in the media if you don't come through, right? So we just have to look. At the end of the day, it's about what we want to do and also what we want to sacrifice. You know, if material things are your God, you ain't willing to sacrifice. And at this point, we can't be half-stepping. Either you're willing to sacrifice some stuff, or you might as well say, that's it. I'm giving myself up. Zaid, you want to respond?
Take a step back because I want folks to piece this together, right? Okay. Because the first major attack took place in the Shelby case. I want you to break that down and what that actually did. What arm of the Voting Rights Act did that weekend, and then bring that back to what we're talking about in the Callis case, so folks can really see just how the Voting Rights Act is structured and what its strengths are and why those two components are so key. And then we have to have that conversation: is that if it goes down, how are we to respond?
Well, keep talking. Yeah, keep talking about Shelby. I'm distracted. I apologize. I'm distracted.
Is the case that Shelby, Alabama, was the case that went to the Supreme Court, and I think it was 2012. That also came out of the Voting Rights Act during the Obama administration. It was probably the largest ceremonial march over the Edmund Pettus Bridge in the face of that. But in terms of actually attacking what needed to be done to either reclaim the Voting Rights Act, what's the next strategy? All of that. You understand?
Okay, so I'll add real quickly. It was a landmark decision, as you said, the Supreme Court of the United States, and Roberts is on the Supreme Court regarding the constitutionality of two provisions of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, Section 5, which requires certain states, and I will tell you, New York was one of those states. Mm-hmm. New York, right across the river, right?
That's right.
Certain states and local governments to obtain federal pre-clearance before implementing any changes in their voting laws or practices. In subsection B of Section 4, which contains the coverage formula that determines which jurisdictions are subject to pre-clearance based on their histories of racial discrimination in voting. And so I think it's, people forget that Wall Street was getting ready, New York was getting ready to leave the state of New York and join with the South. We forget that. We're looking at pre-clearance. Nobody's thinking about northern states being involved in this, but they had to get permission to get off the list, basically, to get off the list. That they've been doing everything they should be doing to implement the Voting Rights Act in 1965.
Nydia Velasquez was very vocal about that during that particular moment as well. I remember her voice being
and that's important because when people vote, voting is just one tool in the toolbox. It's not everything.
Yeah,
But it's
Professor.
one, two. Go ahead.
Yeah, Professor Carter, you know, I know for me, I like to bring you on here and I want to do it more often so we can talk about civic engagement. And what I will say, and civic knowledge as well. One of the first things that Governor-elect Cheryl said, she quoted the quote for New Jersey, and when the crowd would not respond, the logo for New Jersey, and when the crowd could not say it, she said one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to put civic education on we need to deal with civic education. And I was like,
Mhm.
and that was one of the first things. And today I was listening to Karen Hunter talk about Kwame Ture and how he stated to get people to come out and vote once, is the height of the bourgeois propaganda. And it make people politically irresponsible, thinking that their responsibility is limited to one day. So and you said it in the beginning, we have to get people to understand the process. And it's interesting because Justice Sotomayor was on The View, and they kept asking her about different rulings that she was like, go and read it. Go and read it. And what she was trying to say is like, I don't want to sit here and tell you, I need you to begin to read and digest and do it daily so that you can understand what is going on and what they're trying to systematically do to you, take away from you. And to this point, some things have happened tangibly to people where they are feeling it, which I'm sure caused people to get to those ballot boxes on Tuesday.
Mhm.
But again, and I think we all can remember 2008, lines all around the corner, but in 2010, we didn't come back out. And we have to, and I have to say that President Obama, because he had both houses, once he went in, and people
Yep.
and he immediately came back and said, I need to get Virginia and Jersey. And and then you begin to get all this propaganda about racism is over and all that. But I say all that to say that we have to begin to understand the importance. And Rahaman said it earlier about what are some of the things that Jesse was talking about when he was running. I was in college and things, and I can remember him coming to North Carolina and how we get engaged and don't get engaged, and I don't know why it's like that,
I
but
can tell you.
we have to go ahead, tell us.
Yeah, I think you got a bunch of things. I think affirmative action for me is the benchmark. When you start having separation, like class separations amongst us, we go to schools, and let me just go back to it. I grew up with people who have been sharecroppers, people who have fled the Ku Klux Klan. They were older than me, but the migration was happening from the South, the largest group of human beings moving from one place to another from 1915 and 1972. Those people did not come with a lot of education. They didn't necessarily come from integrated communities, right? They came from, they had the values. They still maintained a lot of the values. Generally, I'm not saying everybody had everything, but they maintained a lot of the values that they basically brought to this country like 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago. So many of the people I grew up with didn't even have an 8th grade education, but they understood the power of politics and they understood how government worked. And I said the last time I was here, I said that those teachers in the segregated South who were teaching 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds who were too small or too young to go and help on the plantation with their parents and maybe older brothers and sisters who were helping, who became sharecroppers or were sharecroppers. Those teachers were teaching them how government work or civics when they couldn't even be can't be first, but second-class citizens, right? And those individuals who migrated from the South, who didn't have a lot of education, but had common sense and understood how things work. And then when they get here, they're not satisfied. So they say, we want some changes. And they made changes. They opened up the doors of opportunity for us. All these people who got paychecks and they got nice houses and they got all this, they did not create the opportunity. There were people who had nothing, who loved us when they didn't even know us and would never know us, but were willing to put their lives and labor on the line, right? They made it possible, civil rights movement, those the fish fries on Friday night, helping people pay their rent, the barbers and the hairdressers who put the money up for the civil rights movement, right? Mm-hmm. All of these people created the opportunities that we can take advantage of.
That's right.
And
or just walk into a booth and vote.
Exactly. But even that, open up the doors, opportunities so that we can go and get whatever jobs that we can get. We got to get prepared. You got to take tests. But they made these opportunities available. When affirmative action comes, affirmative action opens up the door. I'm clearly a product, and I benefited from affirmative action. I probably would never go to law school if it wasn't for affirmative action. However, we come through this. We start having class things. Not that we didn't start as a result of integration, because that was Saeed's looking at me. That has something to do with it. But the affirmative action wasn't affirmative for all of us. Some of us were able to take advantage. Many of us, and I know people are proud that you went to Harvard, Yale, or whatever school, but those schools are not teaching you to come back to your community. Those schools are teaching you to serve them. And that hurt our community, right? Our money, they didn't do affirmative action for our goodness of their heart. They did affirmative action because they saw money in our community and said, wait a minute, they're not supposed to be in control of that. So we don't have stores in our community. We go and we buy stuff from other people. I was thinking about, just to go back for a second with this 100 and some odd companies that are supporting Project 2025 and how we don't even know because we don't read. Going back to your point, we don't read 2025. And if we did, we would know who these companies are and know that we're giving our money against our own interests.
Right.
Against our own interests. So in terms, and I'm going to tell you just as an aside, I'm really a civics person because that is one form of the power that we have individually, collectively, and in the community. However, I can tell you 2025, they've decided that, and I've seen this already happening, this new civics, we got to be careful of. So we got to be discerning we got to read, we got to be discerning about the information, but we need to understand how government works. And it's a sad commentary when people who didn't have a lot of education understood what their power was. And you got people who got PhDs and masters and all this stuff, but they don't understand what their power is. They think their power is just in a paycheck or a bank account. Right? So at the end of the day, I'm just telling you, we're going to have to decide individually, collectively, and a community, how much are we willing to sacrifice? Right?
To the point that that's one thing that they did understand, that they would have to sacrifice so that we possibly wouldn't have to sacrifice in the same manner that they did. Like if I do this for my baby now, then they will not have to. And we're right back where they are. And to the point, and I don't know, and I know I sense it. I was reading Steve Bannon's his thing in Political, and the first thing he said, we need to look at Zoran's, is he a citizen? They have this thing, like let's try to see if he a citizen, and then look at all the papers.
They're coming after him.
Yeah, they're coming after him.
They're coming after him, and like the brother in Burkina Faso, they're coming after them. And the interesting thing is, and I'm glad you said that. It was a little off in terms of where we are. But I was, this whole thing, I remember the church committee in the 1970s. I was in high school, I think, at the time. And I remember that they were on the CIA and the FBI about just going out and taking people out, right? And so now this administration is just straight up, we're going to take people out. We're going to execute, we're going to assassinate, they're just taking people out. And so if they're talking about stuff externally, they're also talking about stuff internally.
Right.
Right. It was illegal to engage in COINTELPRO. For those of you who don't know, counterintelligence, FBI, undermining organizations, a lot of things we were doing because, they undermine, pay people off. When material things become your guide, it becomes very easy to undermine people.
So, but as we, to the Voting Rights Act, it seems that our best defense is to continue to vote. That's the least of it. Yeah.
That's the least of it. I will tell you, and I'm going to refer. I know a lot of people don't really, a lot of the younger generation don't know him, and it's meant for you not to know him. And for older people, particularly because of the Democrats have ostracized him, people don't listen to his message.
Mm-hmm.
They go along with what corporate media says. And there's a book by Ralph Nader. Now I can tell you, Ralph Nader was a we person, not an I person. He was Lebanese, grew up in the Lebanese community. His father owned a bar. He used to just hang around the bar and learned a lot about what challenges people had. He single-handedly, by himself, created an area law that we still have some protections called consumer protections, consumer law. He has a book out called Civic Self-Respect. That's the only thing that I've read, and I haven't read everything. That's the only thing I've ever read. And he didn't write it about this time we're in 2025. He wrote it before. It was published, and you can buy it now. He wrote it beforehand. And he gives examples, but it's a blueprint to neutralizing Trump and neutralizing Project 2025. It's an easy read. I encourage everybody to read it. It's not a lot of pages. He gives you examples that have happened that the media has never told you about, which give you example of people think we and not I, and also recognizing what their power is individually, in community, and in the collective across the country over the time. Now he's 92 years old and he's still fighting. he was wearing
I'm old enough to remember him. He was the daddy.
He was wearing the same suit.
And I got that in high school.
Exactly. He was wearing the same suits because money was not his God. Right? Everything he's done is for the protection of the American public. What happened is that, if the Democrats had taken what he was saying and incorporated, maybe they would have won. But instead, they call people with it because they're doing the same thing the Republicans are doing to Curtis Leeway. And I'm not Democrat Republican. I'm James and Toomey. Democrat Republican, two wings on the same bird. One of them will rob the bank without a mask. The other one will drive the getaway car and act like they weren't in it. I'm just saying. So, but I been voting every year since 1972. Never missed a vote, even when I didn't live in New Jersey. I never missed a vote. I was protesting Vietnam at 12, so I've been different for a long time.
So let me say, Professor Carter, thank you for coming on. But let's be clear. Everything that's going on, particularly in the judicial system, is because Donald Trump thinks he is above the law. He doesn't think that he has to pay attention to any of it. And I think
lawless.
Right. And I think we saw that when the judge made the ruling and told him that he had to fund the SNAP program in its total. And he said, well, I don't know if it was him or his people, but they continued to say they were only going to fund half of it. Right. So,
maybe.
Yeah. But he's come around and said now, he's going to fund, the entire thing. But the thing that we've got to understand is that, and at least from you and my perspective, I have never seen anybody disrespect the law like that. Well, right. And and here's the thing, Professor Carter, we would be disbarred like that.
Right. We're doing nothing. We don't get that close.
No.
But I will tell you, I don't know if you were on the program in the beginning, but I will just tell you at the end of the day, we cannot depend on the courts. The ACLU says that all the time. It's about our willingness to sacrifice and put our bodies on the line at a minimum. Contribute to campaigns where people are doing the work. Right now, lawyers are looking kind of bad because of those large firms that become, they became complicit. Right. Yeah. So even the profession is people looking at like, okay, y'all supposed to be out there doing your thing, but you're not. Right. So at the end of the day, the courts are not going to save us. It's going to have to be the American people. And either we're going to get together. Right. Because I hear, all these different things. We're not all thinking the same. I remember Malcolm when he said, people ain't, particularly for Black people, people ain't coming out because of your ideology. They're coming after you because you're Black. They don't care what your religion is. No. They don't care what your degrees are. But at the end of the day,
that's right.
We got to stop talking and start looking at and evaluating what we're willing to sacrifice.
Right.
If you're not willing, then we might as well walk down to DC and say, Trump, do to us whatever you want to do. So we got to make some decisions, and we got to, the system of capitalism is a it will take itself out. We got to decide if we're going to go out with it. Well, because Trump actually, just one more thing, because y'all always get me all the time. Trump is America. See, people, I've been watching and paying attention to him for 50 years. There is nothing he's not doing that he hasn't been doing for 50 years or more. That the problem is he's doing it to the country. And not only that, he has Project 2025 with those over 100 some odd companies that many of us, as I said earlier, are probably supporting financially unknowingly, right? So we may be supporting people against our interests with our money that we love so much, and our material things we get from them make us happy. But are we willing to sacrifice? Because at the end of the day, those who made our opportunities available to us were willing to sacrifice. And I don't think money was their God, and I don't think material things were their gods either.
Well, you can tell that people want you to be a part of this conversation. Yeah. Because, I think that there's some heat that you and Rahaman want to bring that's on a whole nother level. So we're going to look to start having some of those conversations, to have y'all in those conversations. So we want to thank you, Professor Carter, always for your contribution.
Thank you guys for having me.
And giving me the ritual question as she goes out.
Oh,
yes. Professor Carter, who are you listening to this week? Let me
tell you.
Oh, yes.
It's a lot of the artists I love, but at the end of the day, Dead Prez, what side are you on? What side are you for? The people? Or are you for the money?
If we were in the studio, we would play that song just for you.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to go play it now. I'm getting off. Thank you for giving me my time. I didn't have to bogart or anything. I got
reclaiming your time. Okay.
Well, Professor Carter, it ain't us. It's the people who are saying, let you go. Don't stop.
All right. Be well, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Be well. Have a great weekend.
You too. Yes, Miss Josie. How you doing? Josie, are you on mute? We can't hear you.
You're muted, Josie.
Yeah, I don't see her mute on. Josie, keep talking.
Josie, go out and come back in on another browser. See if that'll help. All right, we ain't going nowhere. There you go. Yeah.
Linda, you in the background. Somebody said, but you got to come on with Rahaman and Alturrick. They said they want you in the building, Linda.
The younger voices coming forward. She definitely need to come on here sometime. We never get enough time with Linda. I was really wanted to get her to start looking at the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act as a strategy to counter the battle against Voting Rights Act, and to get her own take on the election, and the election to be the segue to Josie, right? Because Josie's going to do an election.
You're going to do all that in a half an hour?
What I'm saying is, but yeah, because folks need all that information. So Josie when she does come on, she will be lifting mic check. Let us hear you, Josie. Can you hear us?
So hit mute and then take it off. Hit your mute button, Josie, and then come off of it.
We still don't hear her. We never had problems with her technically on here. I don't understand why that's happening.
Yeah.
That's really odd. Odd. Actually, I was just explaining that in addition to her own take on the election, as a radical journalist, they also have an anniversary.
Yes, really, Linda. People really want to hear you. Yes, they requested you specifically. Sure. They want you on with Rahaman and Alturrick. Yes.
The Public Square Amplify, a space that Josie built to teach young prospective students of journalism from high school to college age how to professionally develop their principles and their skills as conscious journalists, and to become a part of a larger fight to create spaces where journalists can work, knowing that they're going to be limited in those spaces that we now refer to as mainstream media, right?
And Ed, we got to also talk about Jersey City. I think out of the races y'all had in Jersey City, only 2 people met the threshold of over 50% in Jersey City. That was
They're
interesting.
2 runoffs. Yeah, they're 2 runoffs. In fact, you know, I've been trying to get the Jersey City crew on. That's been a frustration that I haven't been able to get them on. But James Solomon is in a runoff against Jim McGreevy, and there's several folks. I forget what ward Tina is in, but Tina Knowles is a young sister that's in the street with us around police brutality, and very much in the street with us around the question of community-based violence intervention. That particular slate of candidates was full of candidates who had community organizing backgrounds and community organizing profiles. Now, there's a hidden hand in that particular campaign that drove Solomon's push, right? And that is New Jersey Working Family Party, right? They need to, with the work that they have been doing on the advocacy side and on the lobbying side, needs to be appreciated as a hidden hand doing some very good work on the progressive front, and that helped push Solomon forward. Josie, can you hear us now?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
There you go. There we go.
Okay.
Yes. So, so look, come on in. I'm sure you heard your colleague, and I was hoping that we could have made a different kind of segue from Linda to you with the election, but let's just jump in and hear. Want you to do several things. One, of course, we want you to lift up your anniversary and remind everybody about the work of Public Square Amplified and why it was so important for you to build out. And then, of course, have your own take on this set of elections and what it means in this contemporary moment in terms of the electoral space, what it means in terms of journalists, Black journalists being said, heard, and having a place in reporting on that. You know, and Kafele right on. Kafele is from Jersey City, right? And he's listing up some details about the Jersey City space. And very proud of Gilmore, right? Gilmore was on that Solomon slate and was going to run alone for a minute, but he was on that Solomon slate, and they did their thing, yeah. And you know, Kafele is not on often than not, but he's always checking in. So we thank him for chiming in. So. Welcome back, dear sister. Talk to us. What say you? What did you see that you think needs to be highlighted that folks ain't talking about it in this particular last wave of elections?
You know, the folks at POP and other folks know this, right? So for a long time, and this is, and I think Mandani has a long way to go with this, but we don't have a working class agenda. We haven't had a working class agenda in sort of close to a century. That's something that we sort of have to wrestle with, construct. The Black agenda isn't a working class agenda. Mikey Sherrill didn't run on a working class agenda. You know, so many of the candidates who ran across this state, both on Democratic and Republican side, didn't run a working class agenda. That's a challenge that I think all activists and all civic institutions must face. I think journalism plays a role in sort of uplifting that piece. It's reporting on it, reporting from the periphery, and discussing those, not just in terms of the new phrase of the day, I guess, is affordability. Not in terms of that, but in terms of in a very substantive way, what does affordability mean, and how do you get it done? You know, we often quote, and I've seen it more and more. I mean, I'm old enough to have met him when he was the governor, and we were negotiating. Many of us young people are negotiating to be able to drink at 18 or something like that, and many of us weren't 18 as yet. Mario Cuomo. So we've been quoting him a lot and playing him a lot as a sort of a progenitor in some way of Mandani and others. You know, we often talked about, you know, having these lofty ideals, but having to govern in practical realities. And that's a neoliberal sort of framework when we think about it, right? And so governing in practical realities has always been about how we make a budget work for the working classes, how to make a budget work for public services and the public commons. How do we expand the largesse of those? Still the same sort of trickle down idea. How to expand the largesse for those at the top, and how do we make efficient use of the dollars that we invest in working class and public services? So I think journalists have a role to play in that, and not to sort of repeat speaking points of political platforms and campaigns and past and present leaders and future leaders, but one, to educate the public, so more sort of civic education. So one, to educate the public, two, to bring their voices and their questions and their challenges to the fore, and that is to the center, and to encourage other journalists to do that. We don't, Black journalists are being slashed from legacy newsrooms all over the place, but at the same time, Black spaces, Black news spaces, are challenged by funding, and as journalists get slashed, if there aren't rigorous, sustainable Black spaces, Black news spaces, then there isn't a place for them to rebound from. So we have to build Black news spaces, and we have to, as I often say to folks, we have to do our kind of journalism through an investigative lens. So I don't know if that helps.
No.
And Josie, I know Roland Martin, that's one of the top things that he pushes, and he constantly tells persons that are running for office, you have to do more Black media. That's a key, a key component. I want to say that he attributes to, if you want to be successful and if you want your voice heard, you have to make sure that you put dollars into Black media and the importance of doing so. And he outlines.
Am I frozen?
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine, Josie.
And he outlines.
Roland Martin's running, a platform. He's running a business. I'm not talking about the business of journalism, and I'm not talking about the sort of sales approach to journalism. I'm talking about reporting news and building Black newsrooms to report news. That takes money, yes, and the approach of that of course, yes, Black newsrooms should be in spaces, but we've got to develop the Black journalists, right? We've got to shore up enough Black news spaces. And so there are very few large or medium-sized platforms like Roland Martin. The Griot has been changing hands forever. Byron Allen is one of one. There are Black investors, but they're invested in legacy news, and that's to create profit for themselves, the individual. So how does journalism become or continue its role in civic society, which is to hold government accountable, to hold power accountable, and to hold each other accountable? We're not. We're trying. We can't do that. We don't have the journalists to do that. We don't have the infrastructure to do that. We do. I think all newsrooms do it in some way, but we're not really being rigorous about it.
Let me throw this at you, because I'm glad and I love how you led the conversation about the need for a working class agenda, because this is a country that's very shallow in any kind of working class intentionality or working class consciousness for reasons that we can all figure out, kind of like that. But one of the things, because and Ed appreciate and Don appreciate where I'm going in terms of the hip hop piece, just as corporations were co-opting hip hop and robbing it of its golden age that was progressive and making it lean on the backwoods and the violent stuff of so-called gangsterism and whatnot, and that helped drive the violence that would ultimately end up in our streets with the expansion of the drug trade, right? There was also a buying up of Black radio stations. that used to be voices.
Yeah.
And it used to be spaces for a black voice, for a black agenda, right? That did have a degree of place and understanding of their role of accountability, right? And that's the space in process that really doesn't get talked about. And ironically, right, we also have this class of folks that got a whole lot of money, and like you said earlier, do not reinvest any of that in the kind of structural institutional development that we need to further sustain ourselves to prevent that kind of thing from happening. And also just wanted to, don't want to lift somebody else up that needs to be looked at on the East Coast, but he's based on the West Coast. But Tavis Smiley, after being pushed back out of public space for a minute, retreated and then used his resources to build a black radio station in LA that he calls unapologetically progressive, right? And it's a voice that is rare now, where that used to be the norm.
Yeah.
For black radio in this country, right?
Yeah.
Every major city that had a major black population had a strong black radio presence. And our so-called leaders made sure that they got their behinds on those radio shows to help drive what was happening on the streets, right? So I just wanted to just put a pin in what you're saying, and let's build on that further if you can.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think we've lost, and say, right, the dot-com bust gave rise to this sort of new marketplace, and that new marketplace was social media, right? So we've got everyone's their own sort of logo or their own brand or their own business, their own entrepreneur. Everyone has their own platform, and we're sort of regurgitating ideas and issues driven by the 10 corporations that own media. So there are 10 companies, or maybe less, that own social media platforms that we all participate or play on, so to speak. They also own radio stations, and they own newspapers. And so we are reporting on already constructed ideas of who we are, and already constructed ideas of how we should see the news, which is why it's taken so long for legacy news to even use the word cruelty in reference to immigration raids that just didn't start this year, right? Long for legacy media organizations and Black news organizations to begin to speak about human rights in relationship to immigrants, and for just across ethnic groups to see immigrants as human. And so we begin to see that, but that is, as you said, Zaid, that's not, that's a failure of losing so many platforms, of not having platforms, and also forgetting that the whole idea of the press is to hold folks accountable and to hold each other accountable. So I'm not, it's going to take some time for us to sort of get back to the role of what journalism is supposed to be. Legacy media seems, and mainstream media organizations and medium platforms are all sort of using the same playbook, and that playbook is, how are we creating sort of a construct for us to hold on to the 50% of the population and to be anti that other sort of ideological perspective on who we are. So we are playing the us versus them, and we're doing it in media as well. It's us versus them. And so everyone's picking a side. And that media is not supposed to pick a side. And I'm not suggesting anyway media to be objective. We're not objective. We say we're biased. We're presenting the Black voice. We're centering the activist voice. We don't make any bones about, when people say, well, you want to do advocacy journalism. We say we're not doing it as well as the New York Times or the Washington Post. Everyone does advocacy journalism. Everyone chooses their particular constituents. Everyone sort of responds to their investors. So it's going to take some time. I think as as we sort of wrestle our way to the midterms, because news right now is all about getting to the midterms, the us versus them. I think you're right. I think we need more platforms that are expanding sort of the marketplace of stories and issues and voices, but not just expanding it, providing folks a way to think about their power, their voice, their ability to act and take agency. So yeah, I agree with you. We need more of those platforms, and not just these sort of individual TikTok or social media platforms by individuals that are being extracted by legacy media. And everyone wants to be sort of co-opted by legacy media because it comes with a lot of money. And so that's another challenge, right? How are we not preparing ourselves to be purchased?
And Josie, I had said, because I know, like with Roland Martin, how he had to leave the air, and I think it was like a 24-hour period. They came in and they had told him, so he built back up through his viewers, and they purchased. And then you have Isaac Hayes' son, who's I know he was creating a space called Fanbase. Isaac Hayes III, he's creating a space called Fanbase. And then on Sirius XM, you have the Urban View Radio, which was led by Joe Madison, and they kept that space open. And Karen Hunter is pretty much the voice behind everybody who's come on and who's uplifted Channel 126. So I know, the spaces that are out there where they're trying to. And I think the Root, didn't somebody just recently purchase? That was just recently purchased, right?
Yeah.
As well. So, I mean,
Go
ahead, I'm sorry.
I mean, the person who purchased the Griot, she's a legacy journalist, and she's also, a former Democratic campaign consultant. So, platforms are being used in some way to shore up their individual parties. We're not, and we continue to do it. We did it, Democrats didn't win on any substantive platform. They ran against Trump. We don't really understand the mechanics of affordability. I don't even understand Mikey Sherrill's platform, but we know that the Democrats won by running an anti-Trump campaign. Everyone did, and everyone went along with it. We continue to go along. And then in between campaigns, we try to figure out how we're surviving. And I just think we should be done with that. Absolutely done with that. We continue to run.
I think what Josie just said sums up everything that happened Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Everybody won on an anti-Trump campaign. That's exactly what happened.
Right. And even if they didn't, because of the people were against Trump, that they voted against him. So I think that in the background was the thing. I mean, it really was. He said he wasn't on the ballot, but he definitely was on the ballot.
I mean, a president, but it was more so this time. I mean, locally, right? I mean, I thought the primary was telling.
Mm-hmm.
There are more registered Democrats than Republicans in New Jersey. The primary was telling. People came in between the primary and now. People came out because of the shutdown.
Mm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This was Citarelli's to lose. People came out because of the shutdown. There wasn't a rigorous campaign message from the Democratic candidate. There was no affordability. There was no addressing education, or addressing transit, all of these things, addressing. People won on an anti-Trump campaign.
Right.
That cannot hold the midterms. Cannot.
And Josie, quite frankly, because at what we seen a difference from last year, he kind of said what people wanted to hear, which got him elected. So he doubled down because I think he being the president is very tone deaf, like in terms of his message to the No Kings by doing that video and things like that. He really did not think, I don't know, did not listen to the people. I don't know how to say it, but I think he was very, very tone deaf, and his doubling down. And I do know a big concern if he, even to listen to what Steve Bannon was saying, that if they continue this process on to the midterms, we're going to jail, including myself, and I don't, and things like that. So they know exactly what they have to do and what they can't continue to do, and what we have to do is pay more attention, like you said, and shore up our messages. But in the case of Mondani, do you not think that he listened to the people and he ran on, in terms of his campaign?
Well, I just want to go back again.
Mm-hmm.
You and I are not in agreement on this. I am not in any way we've go. I'm not part of a Democratic party.
I'm not Democrat, Josie. Listen, I vote for what's my best. No, I'm just saying I vote for what's my best interest. And what I'm saying, in agreement with you, I don't think that anybody's campaign, especially, I don't think that the governor-elect, that her message was that impressive. However, I think that people are very fed up of what they're seeing, and they were voting against that. That's what I'm saying.
But I don't know if people are fed up, right? I think there's a moment in time that people are responding to, and I'm not sure what the shoring up message is when I say that that's not going to work for the midterms, meaning that the Democrats cannot begin to sort of slide on the Republican agenda, right? Just cruise on the Republican agenda. So I think it's going to take a lot more, and there's a moment, we've had so many moments to see the Democratic Party not die, right? So the Democratic Party is pretty much dead. I call it the moderate Republican Party, to really reconnect to its union agenda, to its working class agenda, to its education agenda. I think too many progressives have made a ton of money being consultants to Democratic campaign, and made a lot of money in the financialized capital markets, which didn't reinvest in communities, but simply reinvested in itself. And so people there's a certain segment of the population making a lot of money. Progressives are making money. There's an expanding workers class where people lived on credit, lived on debt, and are now sort of like cannot access credit. The debt is overwhelming, and now the market has shrunk. And jobs have collapsed, and we're now even more of a service economy, but a service economy that doesn't involve human beings at all. So it's a time for re-engaging the roots of what we want society to look like, and how workers are going to be assured. We can't sort of starve an entire population, which are babies and toddlers, and say, well, that's an agenda. And that's across the board, right? We've been doing this by shrinking. This is not about the shutdown. This is about shrinking resources to working families and poor families. We've been passing budgets that undermine healthy lives for 0 to 5, right? We've been doing that. Democrats and Republicans and independents have been doing that. So it is with ease to not serve SNAP. It's with ease to shut down the government. So I think that activists have to really engage in this conversation. Mondani is going to have a tough time.
But did you not think that he listened and kind of connected and heard what the people in New York were saying?
I certainly think that is what we all would love to believe. I think People were fed up with Eric Adams. People were disgusted by the Trump-Cuomo affair. So it's a combination of so many things. It is not just one thing. Of course, people are listening to their own needs, and I would dare to suggest that maybe 2/3 of those volunteers from Mandani who got him elected, progressive liberals. I think 1/3 are hardcore folks who want to transform systems. You can't sustain power on the 1/3. That's it. It's going to be interesting to see. We need more. We need to expand the 1/3, right? We need folks who are really committed to systems changes. So folks want to, the idea, the message that we should be talking about, right? So if you get free buses, what, people are going to stop working? People are going to stop going to school because buses are free, right? But I think we all, the issues and the challenges of working class families in New York City are the same challenges and issues in New Jersey and across the country. And people haven't figured out that even in sort of the wrestling with how do I survive the next day, we are doing it by supporting a marketplace that cannot engage in equality, cannot engage in fairness, cannot. Capitalism is not designed to do that. And we support it. We completely support the structure. We believe that it's okay for people to do better than others. We absolutely believe it. We are committed, Americans are committed to that people can do better. If you worked harder, you deserve. We are committed, our ideas about who we are and who our neighbors are, we're absolutely committed that it's okay for people to appear to be better off so that we too can aspire. That has undermined us completely as a society. And I don't think we don't want to own that, but we should all own it. We are okay with other people not doing well because they didn't work hard enough. We're okay with our.
I don't know if you heard when Rahaman said earlier that we all do better when our whole block is doing good. And I think that at least, in the communities that I talk to, that people don't want to continue to come back and, as Rock said, to be the only person working on the block. We like it when everybody is, at least I know how, I feel that if we're all doing, seemingly well, not just one or two people, I think, one of the things I think that we as a community, I was brought up in a more community fashion, and I think that's where we've gotten away. Everybody is more individual and they don't even know their neighbors. But I think at one point that we all, people walk to work in our communities. There were places to go to work, and we did things as families, and I think we are far from that. And I believe that that's the community that we have to get back to, not where just a couple of us are thriving, where we're all thriving.
Well, I think so, to your point, right? Mm-hmm. Capital moves, and if capital moves, then the labor should. People change neighborhoods, they move homes, they move for schools, they move to the beach, they move to the mountains, whatever. And we should, and when I talk about that, we should not be okay with folks doing better while others are not. It is not just about the sort of the 2 square blocks of where we live, but it is the entire society, right? It's the entire society. People move away from their neighborhoods because they no longer want to live in spaces where they believe does not sort of support sort of their social inclinations. People create new social networks. They engage in new social behavior, right? So that happens. That's what solidifies and continues to affirm that it's okay for other people to do better than I am. And it's okay for me to do better. And no one share. Like no one wants to say, okay, so if I'm in a job and I'm going to fight so we're all paid the same and we all get the same increase. Because what's going to end up saying, we're going to say, well, I did more than this person. We're constantly sort of competition is very much part of who we are as citizens. And that is about a system of a long held system of colonization, right? So it's a radical sort of reawakening, and that's all about the gutting of public education and our sort of our acquiescence to it. We acquiesce to it.
Well, Josie, we got to bring you back so we continue this, because I'm the person that negotiated contracts, and I believe that we all should work. But we have our next segment, and as you know, that this is a hip hop political show. And
before you get to the question,
I want
you to tell us everybody about your anniversary event coming up.
So let me say this. So
go ahead.
Celebrate our fourth anniversary. We're starting our fifth year. I'm not really sure how we're doing it because we don't have a lot of, and I say this all the time, Black people aren't investing in our Black media newsroom, right? People aren't investing in real ways. We can't find Black journalists, but we're going to celebrate our fourth anniversary. We're going to continue to try to report from the community. We are made possible by the people who show up, who volunteer, who give $1, who give $5 to make sure that Public Square continues. It is a community effort. It is a collaborative effort. We're floored that we are entering our fifth year. And I really mean that we're floored that we have held on for so long. We've not disappeared. And it is in large credit to the people who show up. It's not me, it's just people who show up. And one of those people I want to give a shout out to, and that's Brian Branch Price, our photojournalist, our award-winning photojournalist that we've won awards with. And he was in a car crash last week, and he is now paralyzed in a hospital in New Jersey.
Oh, no.
I want to give a shout out to him and his family. Brian showed up for Public Square, and we never paid him. And he's done the most phenomenal work for us. And if you go to our page,
on the street all the time.
He was photo covering Black life in New Jersey. Black life.
Brian Branch. What's his last name again? Brian Branch.
Brian Price. And
good brother.
I want to give a shout out to him, and I want to encourage folks. Howard University has a GoFundMe for him. I want to, just show up for him. We've got to show up for each other. So we're going to show up for him, and so shout out and love Brian and what he's done for us, and we want to support him back. And then what am I listening to? I've actually been listening to, and this is going to be crazy, and I know it's a hip hop station, but I've gone back to some of my roots, and I've been listening to Chopin and Bach, and I'm so sorry. Sometimes I just need to chill, and so.
Ain't nothing but Wynton Marsalis saying more music.
Sometimes, I do have a colonized mind, and sometimes I do love a bit of a harpsichord. What can I say?
All right.
Well, thank you.
Cheers.
Good to have you, Josie. And we got to really pray for Brian. That's terrible to hear.
Okay. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Oh, man. Oh, that was a bomb. I was not ready for that. Not ready for that at all. But Baba Tony is here. Where's Obi? Is Obi here?
So let me tell you, Zaid, for some reason he's having difficulty getting on. I mean,
really?
He's tried a number of times to click on, but he's having some difficulty getting in.
He's been on before. I definitely. I hope we can figure that out, because young brother's doing some very good things. But we got Baba Tony, so let's ride. All right.
There's something else here, but I don't see them on screen. So if they pop on screen, I'll let you know.
This is Delaney. Delaney works with. Delaney is at Howard, right? How are you, Delaney? Good to see you. Right. For some reason, Obi's having trouble getting on. Right. So stay right there. Don't go nowhere. Right. Text Obi to change his browser, whatever he got to do, so he can jump in this conversation. But we want to get into it because we don't lose any more of your time and our time to try and lift up all the stuff that we've been doing. We have been having an ongoing conversation about Assata Olugbala Shakur. and I'm trying to keep my emotions in check, who left out of here on September 25th at 78, safe and free in the arms of revolutionary Cuba, thankfully. That also demands and compels an important conversation about solidarity. What does solidarity with Cuba look like at this particular moment? And this particular moment has some particular demands and challenges that are different from other moments that we need to look at. So we wanted to have this intergenerational conversation tonight with Baba Tony and Obi and now Delaney, because you represent really almost 3 generations of folks doing this work and actually daring to pick up this line of struggle. And that struggle, of course, that line, of course, is the Black radical tradition. But let's start with the elder, right? Baba Tony, welcome back. I want you to, one of the things that I wanted you to absolutely lift up, and if you haven't done it yet, I want you to do it as soon as possible. You were on with Basim Chawi, Education at the Crossroads a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And one of the things that you lifted up is the need for us to pull together an anthology and a collection of how Assata has impacted the Black radical tradition, right, as a way to properly feed her legacy, right? And of course, you have your own dyed in the wool, in the trenches, very principled history with solidarity with Cuba looks like from our struggle, right? So just from your own vantage point, right? And I want to say also by way of announcement, November 15th, Newark, Express Newark, 1 o'clock, we're having our local tribute to Assata. So just want you to just from the vantage point of the elder and struggle, on the elder in the conversation, what say you about Assata that's important that we must have as some of our takeaways, and what are some of our things to do to shore up her legacy?
Well, the first part is that we have to acknowledge, the work that she did in relationship to our collective struggle, and also the meaning of Assata. It's her the idea of resisting, the idea of even while she was in exile, she was still thinking about us and addressing issues that related to us, but related to all oppressed people globally. And so, part of the conversation that you was having about the media and even with hip hop is that all this is part of, the counterintelligence program, which was able to not only exile us, put us in prison, murder people, but it was designed to disrupt the consciousness of young people. And so Assata called this cultural imperialism. And so how do we begin to raise the consciousness of our people, in particular about people like Assata, Queen Mother, and many of the Black women who were very important to our struggle. And so we got to write more poems about Assata. We got to write more songs about Assata. We got to write essays about Assata. We got to make T-shirts, put Assata on pencils and hats. We have to uplift, the struggle that she sacrificed her life for. But if we don't remember Assata, what we're doing is internalizing our own oppression in terms of what the state is doing to us. One of the calls that I had made, and I'm still trying to, write that up and put it out, is that we had published a piece that Assata wrote in State of the Race that was published in 2004, and it was Our Past and so forth. And so what I wanted to do is that send that to selected people who dealt with Assata to write a piece about her, but also do a broader piece, but also do a piece where people could do poems, do graffiti or whatever, so we have a sort of artistic piece about how do we begin to remember, Assata. I have to say, I've just, this new book that came out on Queen Mother Moore, is that this is another connection, because she's that extension of Queen Mother Moore. When we had the demonstration in 1979 at the UN, we had about between 8 and 10,000 people there. And that was when they announced that Assata was freed from prison. And it was Queen Mother Moore on the stage with Betty Shabazz and so forth. So we got to see these connections, particularly with Black women who played a very key role in terms of trying to uplift our struggle, and how the role particularly Mother them played in raising the consciousness, of our people. And so even the prior conversation that you guys were having, is that what are we doing to raise the thinking, the consciousness of our people, and not necessarily surrender, to the democratic ideas of what democracy is. So we got to flip this script, but we got to do it. We got everybody's not doing it, but who's doing it? Let's work with who's doing it, and let's get more to do it.
Yeah. I gotta jump in there because you got some, young folks are into what they call gear, right? And I think everybody is biting on that apple and on that gear that you wearing. Where you tell us about that hoodie you wearing?
Well, I'm working on. I got a series of these. I'm working with a sister I grew up with in Harlem, and she's a designer, working class sister. And so, and I said, well, I do a course on Black consciousness. So I said, well, let's put design and consciousness together and create conscious hoodies, right? And let's get it out. Let's get the image, So I'll just show you a little bit, right? And have it's our duty to win, right? And so we gotta put that message out all over, because they are lulling our people to sleep, man. And that when they read about Assata, when they read about Queen Mother More, then they begin to see ideas on what it is they can do versus getting consumed by, Sexy Red and, all these other, artists that's not necessarily pushing freedom, pushing self-determination, pushing sovereignty. So, but we have to drive that narrative.
Let's take us. I want you to take a step back twofold. One, you mentioned the new book on. I'm assuming you're talking about Ashley Farmer's
Queen Mother. Yes,
Queen Mother, right? I want everybody to know that Queen Mother was important to you personally, right?
Yes,
in your life, and we both had our own connections with Assata personally.
Yes,
right? I think you should, and I have to also say this. My work starts around Malcolm and the Party, right? She was an important influence on Malcolm. Advancing internationalism while he was in the Nation of Islam.
Yes,
of course, went far beyond what the nation was willing to do, and he wound up outgrowing the nation. But let's talk about Queen Mother for a little bit. In her bridge of that generation,
she was, part of RAM, which Malcolm was also part of RAM, and so RAM was a precursor to the African People's Party, which I was part of with Queen Mother. And so my name Menelik is take that in honor of Queen Mother because that's the name that she's given me. In fact, the picture that that Ashley has of Queen Mother, I got that same picture with Queen Mother when I, up in the house when she lived up on Amsterdam Avenue up in Harlem. But Mother was someone. She would come up to Boston with us. We were young. We'd be up 3 o'clock in the morning, and Queen Mother Moore is just lecturing us, talking about what's happening, educating us. And some of the cats be falling asleep. And Queen Mother said, well, children, I see you all the time, so I'm going to take a little rest, right? But she was a very, very, very powerful sister, very a theoretist, a strategist, and what I really appreciate about Mother, the more I think of it, people like Muhammad Ahmed, Saladin Muhammad, Askir Touré, Bilal Sunni Ali, these folks were part of the Central Committee of the party. Mother would come in and fuss them cats out, says, y'all got to make sure that the young people are part of the decision-making process and so forth. And so, she was a very important part of getting that peer of revolutionaries that, be more inclusive, be more democratic in their own process. And they had to submit. They said, yes, Mother, yes, So she was a powerful entity, man. I mean, and it's just reading the book. And when I hear, when they quote her, I just can hear her voice, and so forth. But I'm just making sure that at least they're putting within a political context and a spiritual context that Mother exists. Because Mother, she was with Oba Surgyman, who started the village. And they was part of the Aloe Joe party that was marching up and down in Harlem, in the 60s and so forth. So she has a deep history, and so, but we got to lift her up. We gonna get one out on one of these on Queen Mother, what I'm saying?
And Professor Tony, with that being said, Delaney, she's time is getting real tight for her. So I know that she's gonna have to get ready to exit. So, Delaney, is there something that you needed to say before
To
you leave?
Delaney's point, Delaney is just
But
a part of a tribute at Howard, and we're getting static from somewhere. Everybody go on mute.
okay, but I'm just saying, but Delaney has to leave at 8:30 p.m.
Right? Delaney was a part of a tribute to Assata at Howard, right? The students did, that Obi's forces did. There's a Kwame Ture Society at Howard. Delaney, come on.
Obi, can you put yourself on mute? Can you mute yourself, Obi?
There it is. There it is. Yeah, that was static.
Peace, all. As was just mentioned, my name is Delaney. I'm currently a senior at Howard. And today I'm here representing Kwame Ture Society from Howard University. We are the student extension of the Africana Studies Department at Howard, and we basically are an educational maroonage space. We engage in study of texts that are in the Black radical tradition every week. And we also do
hold up, baby, hold up. I gotta stop you.
What's up?
Educational maroonage. Say that again and break that down.
Educational maroonage.
Folks ain't talking like that no more in academia. I got a professor right here who can bear witness to what I'm saying. And break that down for us.
Yeah, so essentially when I call KTS an educational maroonage space, really what I'm saying is that this study space, this consistent space where we engage in Black study, right? This is somewhere that we are directly challenging the very foundations that institutions such as those like Howard are built on. We're challenging the idea of, Western concepts of leadership, of hierarchy. We're questioning anti-Blackness. We're questioning the ways that society has been structured to ensure the subjugation of African people here, but also on the continent. So when I say education in the maroonage space, I'm saying that this is a space in which we are directly operating in opposition to the normative, dominant structure and mode of being that is colonialism, that is capitalism, that is white supremacy. And this is a space on Howard's campus where we are interceding in that, or attempting to intercede in that, by raising the consciousness of our people. So really, yeah, like what it is, yeah, I'll leave it there.
Zai, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Why I stopped you on that is that because that's one of the things that Black studies, by virtue of its attacks in the bourgeois agenda and the commercialization of Black studies, has gone away from, right? Black studies was rooted in the Black liberation movement. It comes from the community in the streets, right? And the emergence of a Black student movement in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
So that relationship that you just described should be the norm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In Africa,
I see somebody
nationally, but it is not any longer. Baba Tony, you may want to bear witness to this.
No, I mean, she's correct. It's like Black bourgeois studies, we have to take it over, and so it's an assault on us. But this is the continual assault. This is an extension of COINTELPRO. This is an extension of cultural imperialism. Is to begin to, my department did. They put a piece out on Black studies, Africana studies. They had a hand with a dollar bill sign, right? And so, the question is that it's not about serving the people. It's not about, getting skills for corporations. And so we've been making these Black students to be more complicit, in terms of their own oppression. And so we like she said, we got to operate like maroons, try to get people to escape, like get them free, go to a maroon space. But the reality is there's no place for us to run. We got to rumble right here.
Obi, mute yourself. Everybody, let's stay on mute unless we're talking.
Obi, let me bring you in because you brought us Delaney, and of course you were driving that work down.
And Zai, before you bring Obi and Delaney, do you have to leave still? Are you good?
I'll stay on.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you're okay. Go ahead.
And make sure you get off everything you need to get off while you're on too, because we want you to do that, right? Obi, come on in and tell us about what I did down there. Why we getting that static with you?
I'm sorry. Well, it's always a pleasure to be on. How's everybody doing? Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay, good. Well, it's always an honor to be on, and we know that the human resource is the most precious, so it was good to bring Sister Delaney on to show the cross-generational dynamic. So for starters, I mean, it's about, as you know, we had a campaign dealing with Sister Assata for 2 years now. And the objective was to, number one, get her off the terrorist list. That's how I met Menelik. He was at the press conference we organized 2 years ago. So we called for her to come off the terrorist list and to get the $2 million bounty off her head, and also to deal with Cuba coming off the State Department's list of nations they falsely accused of state-sponsored terrorism and what have you. And in July this year, we started a health project in Assata's honor, and also Pauline Lumumba. And it's to begin to work hands-on with Cuban doctors on the African continent. And we're looking at the Congo, we're looking at Burkina Faso, we're looking at Zimbabwe, we're looking at Ghana, we're looking at Sierra Leone, we're looking at Liberia. And when we collaborated with the Kwame Ture Society last week, it was to begin something called the Assata Shakur Teaching Strategic Offensive, where we're asking educators at all levels, from elementary to university, to teach about Assata before this year concludes. And the emphasis would be on the fact that Assata Shakur is part of the urban guerrilla warfare tradition in terms of women, which connects her to Josina Marshall, the first woman to go through guerrilla training in Mozambique when they were fighting for their independence, the first wife of Samora Machel, the leader of their revolution. You would connect her to the African Fatima Banawi, who was the first African woman in Palestine to go through guerrilla training, as All Eyes on Palestine. This is an African woman who went through training in Palestine. You connect her to the women of the MPLA in Angola that went through an armed struggle, the women in Namibia who went through an armed struggle, the women in Eritrea who 33% of their guerrilla fighters were women, which is the highest level of women fighting in a guerrilla war, not only in African history, but in modern history. And so that is the tradition that she represents. And how we are strategically pivoting from the first phase of the campaign is we're now demanding that the Congressional Black Caucus apologizes to our community for supporting her extradition. And their justification was that they didn't know that Joanne Chesimard and Assata Shakur was the same person, which is like telling us you didn't know Cassius Clay and Muhammad Ali were the same person. You don't know that Kwame Ture and Stokely Carmichael are the same.
Did somebody specifically at the Congressional Black Caucus say that?
Yes. Let's give that some background. 1999, Christine Whitman is governor. Okay. Christine Whitman, the Pope goes to Cuba, right? And when the Pope goes to Cuba, Christine Whitman makes a push to the Pope to have the Pope negotiate Cuba giving up Assata. And she went to the Congressional Black Caucus to support it. It was in that context that the Black Caucus supported it, and afterwards said they didn't know who she was. One of the things that made me very angry and it broke my heart about that was that at the time, Daniel Payne Sr. was in the Congress, in the Congressional Black Caucus. And Donald Payne, when he was Councilman Donald Payne, organized a study that said the only place in New Jersey where Assata should be tried is New Jersey, to have a jury of her peers. He definitely knew her name and did not, address that as he should have. And we wound up having to protest him at his office for not doing that. And there's a lot that came after that too. And one of the things that we'll lift up is and I think Obi lost his connection, is the emergence of ELAM, Cuba's International Medical School, right? Fidel said, bring them all here. They don't know, let's show them, right? And a whole delegation of the Congressional Black Caucus with their heads between their knees, because they know they was dead wrong, so had to take their behind to Cuba to see the Cuban reality for themselves, right? And out of that, we even started seeing young Black and brown women from cities like Newark, the Bronx, Boston, right? Going to school for free, becoming doctors in revolutionary Cuba. Yeah. Cuba answered that with solidarity. That does have a real context.
The work that we have to do, and this is important because we have to understand contradictions. And sometimes we go after when we should. I mean, we need to make everybody accountable, but we have to target that who we go after. But the most important part is that we got to raise the consciousness of young people, because it was young people. And this is not just, in the 60s, but if you read Sterling Stuckey's book on slave culture, it was young people who were also oppressed, who were the ones who were enthusiastic about, escaping and doing things and resisting, right? And so, with COINTELPRO, it did a thing to young people. I mean, taking out Fred Hampton and other young folks, the stuff that happened in California. But what are we doing to raise the consciousness of young people for them to begin to engage in projects, to do what they did, when they went to the South, to register people to vote, and so forth. So we have to focus on it and build a base, because if we got a base, then the caucus and anybody else is going to say, what can we do for you? You see what I'm saying? So we've fallen short in some ways to do that. And so what has happened is that even with Black Lives Matter, is that it rose as a spontaneous movement, but not in connection to the historical relationships that we had in our movement. And so they was able to split it. You see what I'm saying? In terms of create controversy and all that kind of stuff. But we got to build unity right now. This is we had a bad time and we had a good time. We got an opportunity, right? Because the people are hurt. I heard the last conversation was saying, well, the people are hurting. They know they hurting. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got to fall. And just because they're not saying they're not hurting, don't mean they ain't hurting. That's part of the psychology. But we have to plug into that, right? In order to transform that. And then we talk to the elected officials, you know what I'm saying? Because if you ain't got no base, they ain't going to listen to you.
And Professor Tony, quite frankly, that's where we fall short of. We have numbers and we have everything, but we don't have our lobbyists facing tight. That's what we have to get tight. We have to really get our agenda where we carry it to the halls of ... and make sure that we stay connected at that point. Yeah. Delaney, I don't know if you've seen Principal Kafele. Are you a student of Professor Carr?
Yes, I am. I'm currently in this class.
Yes, he did ask. I know. I listen to Professor Carr every Wednesday through Friday on Sirius XM, and he sits in Joe Madison's space. They still have the Black Eagle space, and him and Lamont King, they sit in that space. And on Saturdays, he does with Karen Hunter on YouTube and everything. But and that's where it's things work out that I know Professor Hunter had started her show off with Kwame Ture talking about Tuesday. No, it's just not enough that we come out on Tuesday on one day to vote. We have to be a part of the whole process, and our civic engagement has to be expanded and everything. So
this
is to Kwame Ture. That's what you guys are doing down there.
They belong to the radical women's.
Yes. Right? So
from which came the Lowndes County.
Add you to the stage. So type in the comments that you add me to the stage.
Right. This is
Black
Panther.
Yeah, right here.
The radical strategy to the left of the Democratic Party. We need to appreciate that going forward too. And a bunch of us in this conversation have our own relationship with Kwame Ture. Obi, you just came back. We probably missed a lot, but I wanted you to talk about the things that are.
And is it in your headphones?
Yeah. No, I can't even hear him in my headphones.
Obi, we can hear you. So mute while he's fixing. We can hear you loud and clear. So mute while he's fixing.
Yeah.
You see that, Delaney? Professor Carr's my brother. See that, Delaney?
Yes.
So let Professor Carr know that.
Yeah.
That's
Professor Carr is very special
too. That's also done by Panther Cub Sharif El Mekki, one of our prized Panther Cubs, who does that convening every year in Philadelphia for Black teachers. So right on.
And you see that? You see that also, Delaney? Everybody's talking to you.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to tell Dr. Carr that everybody was shouting him out and everything on Tuesday when I see him in class.
So one of his students, you got his brother, Principal Kafele, and his former student, Linda Lloyd, is on as well. So make sure.
So Delaney, tell us what's coming out of the Kwame, the Assata tribute that y'all did at Howard.
Yeah, so essentially, we did the Assata tribute last week. We partnered with Obi. We had the children as part of the Mass Emphasis Children's Theater come. We had James Early there. We had Nkechi Taifa. We had Obi was on the panel. Myself, I was on the panel, and really we just kind of engaged in a collective conversation around Assata's legacy. Particularly, there was a lot of discussion around Cuba sort of being her site of sort of escape. What does that mean? What does that mean for our, Pan-African politic? What does that mean for our anti-imperialist politic? And that was kind of the element that I sort of approached the conversation from, having just been on the island in September, distributing medical aid on the ground to African doctors. People are definitely sort of like there was a lot that I was able to sort of connect for folks in terms of understanding that, the sort of general perception that, Cuba is a white country, Cuba is this, is that, but Cuba is a country full of African people, people of African descent, people that practice African religions, people that believe in Pan-Africanism, especially on the east of the island in Guantanamo, in Matanzas, in these places, right? So I kind of was a lot of the sort of my intention as I do this work around Cuba and as I come back here and report back is really to demonstrate to folks, especially to African folks here, that this is a struggle that we should be, seeing as our own struggle, right? The liberation of Cuba, the socialist revolution in Cuba, these are things that are directly related to our struggle here. And there's a lot of really meaningful solidarity that can be built. There's a lot of strategy that can be shared. There's a lot of organization that can be built, across the water. So that's really always my goal. And specifically in that event, it was relevant, with Assata's legacy, like I said, because this was the site of her escape. This was a site where, she was ultimately able to have autonomy over her own death, right? The state did not kill her. And I think that that's something really meaningful. And I think it's also really meaningful when we consider how the state of Cuba was willing to, keep this sister protected, even when being offered things like, the sanctions being lifted, the blockade being lifted, and, remaining steadfast and firm, not just because Cuba understands that this is the politically correct thing to do, but because Cuba really sees the struggle of African people as integrated into their struggle as Cubans, as, folks that are fighting for a socialist revolution. But moving forward, kind of following that event, Obi talked a little bit about the Assata Shakur strategic teaching offensive. And that's something that, KTS will kind of be helping to supplement, helping to promote, helping to spread, especially to other college campuses, HBCU campuses. But next week, we do have our kind of like our big event for sort of this fall coming up, entitled the Sovereignty Summit. It will be taking place from November 13th through November 16th on Howard University's campus, largely out of Founders Library, but we will be streaming the different sessions on our YouTube channel. And our YouTube channel, I'm going to say it so that folks can have it. Our YouTube channel is Kwame Ture Society HU 1052. So if y'all want to subscribe, you can, and you'll be able to get access to all the different sessions that we're doing. Essentially, the Sovereignty Summit is a convening in which we're really trying to address.
And Delaney, I'm sorry, just put that in the chat so that we can post that up too, okay?
Okay, I'm gonna send it right now.
Okay.
So that y'all can have that. And then I'll also drop our Instagram. But the Sovereignty Summit, really the goal, it's a 4-day convening in which we're really trying to address and look at Black self-determination, Black sovereignty, Black autonomy. And so we're going to be engaging on the 13th, we're going to be looking at Black self-determination from a student perspective. So we're going to be looking at the history of Black student struggle. We're going to be having a convening of organizers from South Carolina.
Delaney, I'm sorry, Zay, let Obi in. He's back. Obi can come in.
I don't have the controls.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Delaney. I'm sorry.
No problem. Okay. But we're going to be kind of looking at self-determination from the Black student perspective. And then our second day, the 14th, we'll be looking at Black self-determination in the community. So we're going to have Malcolm X Grassroots. We're going to have that local chapter come and kind of do a grounding on integrating campus and community struggle. We're going to have a presentation from the community garden at Howard that I'm also part of. And we'll be talking about food sovereignty, Black land ownership, our connection to the land. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we will be engaging really in study, on Saturday, we'll be engaging in study of the book Of Black Study by Joshua Myers. Dr. Myers, who is a Howard professor in the Africana department. And then on Sunday, we'll be having a performance from the Mass Emphasis Children's Theater. They'll be doing a collection of different poems and things that are in relation to the theme. But yeah, you can go to our YouTube and our Instagram. It has the full schedule, including like the times for every single session. Sessions will be happening pretty much all throughout the day. Lectures, different things like that. So we highly encourage y'all, even if you can't come out, to log on and see what we're talking about down at Howard and build with us ideologically.
All right. Well, you gave us a lot to think about. Are you going to stay with us? Are you still good?
I do have to go ahead and get off.
Okay. So before you leave, I got to ask you one question before you leave. What you say?
I said, that's the daughter you gave us plenty. I should have said granddaughter. You gave us plenty. Go ahead and ask the ritual question.
Okay. So Delaney, this is a hip hop political show. Doing all of that work that you just outlined, what hip hop artist, individual or group are you listening to keep you inspired while you're doing that work?
So I don't know if y'all can see, but back there I have a Tribe Called Quest clock. Okay. Tribe Called Quest is my joint. Midnight Marauders is their best album that they released, and that's just going to be that, and I'll stand on that. But yeah, definitely Tribe Called Quest for sure. Also Mos Def a lot for sure.
Okay. And you're and Professor and Delaney, you know Professor Tony?
No, this is actually my first time sort of meeting him.
And Professor Tony, you're still at UMass?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so y'all make sure you leave your information so that he can connect with you and everything before you leave and everything. So we like to and if he's doing anything up on the island, I know I love to be up in Martha's Vineyard in August. You can get you on a panel up there in August or something. All right.
I'll be going to Cuba in January because I'm trying to get people to take some support down to Santiago and Guantanamo.
All right, so make sure y'all connect.
Now having said that, right, and Delaney, we appreciate it. Granddaughter, you gave us a lot. Now let's shift to Cuba. Right?
And Delaney, before you leave, don't be a stranger. You're always welcome back. Don't wait for us to call. If you have something to call,
all right.
Okay?
I'll get y'all's contact numbers through over. But thank y'all so much and peace.
Right
Have
on,
a blessed night.
Thank you again, Granddaughter.
Thank you all. Thank you.
On the money, right? Let's shift to Cuba. Everybody's talking about what Melissa did to Jamaica and Haiti, and really not even talking about Haiti either, right? That's that other country banished by white supremacy and U.S. imperialism, right? But Cuba has a way of dealing with the natural phenomena that are hurricanes, but it still comes at a cost when they face them, right? And so that, along with all of the other strangulations of the blockade that we're talking about, we got a sea of ships in the Caribbean from the U.S. Navy threatening Venezuela and whatnot. Cuban solidarity with Cuba means something very particular to this moment. Obi, you've been trying to get in and get a good connect. You take a bite out of that apple. Take a bite out of that apple. Let's bring it home.
Yes, everybody can hear me?
We can hear you. Yes, we can.
Okay. And you heard the things that I highlighted before. Like I said, we have a project where we're focusing on the needs in Africa, but also as this is the 25th anniversary of the agreement between Comandante Fidel Castro and the Black Caucus to send children to the Latin American School of Medical Sciences to study medicine. And 245 children have graduated from that program, but it was supposed to be 500 scholarships a year. So we're still trying to get together a national network so we can send young people down there to study medicine, and they can come back here and be the best doctors that the community has ever had. Connecting it to Newark a few years ago, Mayor Baraka was the only mayor in the United States that allowed his Health and Human Services Division the opportunity to engage the Cuban Ministry of Public Health, and they compared notes on the corona pandemic. And 2 weeks ago, there was a similar meeting that took place that turned attention to nursing. And 23 years ago, when she was the chair of nursing at Bowie State University, Dr. Eleanor Walker wrote Comandante Fidel Castro a letter saying that we have less nurses than doctors. And to complement the medical scholarship program, training young people to be doctors, Cuba should strongly consider offering nursing scholarships to sisters in this country, which once again connects to the legacy of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey and the UNIA with the African Nursing Corps. Harriet Tubman was a nurse. Samora Machel, the leader of Mozambique's revolution, was a nurse. So we're always looking at creative ways to build ties with Cuba around health issues. And this is something that we're going to continue to do. And right now, Cuba has a treatment that prevents diabetes victims from having their limbs amputated. And since we know diabetes impacts our community in North America at a disproportionately higher level than it does any other community, any other demographic, this is another way to build ties with them. Also, they developed a project with Venezuela. You mentioned Venezuela over 20 years ago called Operation Project Miracle. And our children did a video about it where they eradicated blindness and restored eyesight to thousands of people in Cuba and Venezuela. So there are all type of medical issues that afflict our community in North America that make sense to build the strongest ties with Cuba possible. The fight to eradicate diabetes, the fight to eradicate autism, the fight to eradicate HIV/AIDS, the fight to eradicate cancer. So it makes sense all the way across the board. And Booker T. Washington and Du Bois, people forget the one thing that they were on the same page about was the healthcare question. Du Bois did a sociological study called The Physique and Health of the Negro American in 1905. And before Booker T. Washington transitioned, his organization started Negro Health Week. So this is something we've been fighting for decade after decade after decade after decade after decade. And because Cuba, just like Africans in the United States, represents our kidnapping and displacement from Mother Africa, an alliance dealing with a humanitarian dynamic makes all the sense in the world historically, politically, and morally.
Obi,
Well,
health studies in Cuba, and just knowing how they've always been, way ahead in terms of medical education, how are they doing as a community in terms of diabetes and things of that nature?
Like we said, they have developed a treatment system to where you prevent people's limbs from being amputated. So in the fight to eradicate diabetes, they're at the forefront of that struggle. During the corona pandemic, they developed 4 vaccinations, 1 nasal and 3. They were the only nation in the Western Hemisphere to develop a vaccine institute.
That's right.
So there's so many things that they have done. We mentioned glaucoma a few seconds ago. They are at the forefront of eradicating glaucoma. And 23 years ago, when the Millennium Fund was created by the United Nations, Comandante Fidel Castro told Kofi Annan, forget the blockade, we'll let bygones be bygones. We will send 4,000 of our best HIV/AIDS doctors to Africa, and they will remain in Africa till HIV/AIDS has been eradicated. And we mentioned earlier, before we were cut off, the work they did in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea to neutralize the Ebola pandemic. And when we had the press conference in July, I think Brother Menelik was there, the Liberian doctor, Dr. Marcia Stone, who was escorting them around Liberia to deal with that work, she was at our press conference and she spoke about their work. And in terms of reproductive rights, my sister, they're at the forefront of that. As a matter of fact, the leader of their brigade in Burkina Faso, Dr. Mabel Montego, was at our press conference. So she was talking about the revolutionary approach to being an OBGYN. And one more thing, they are the only nation in the Western Hemisphere where green medicine is a part of their national health policy. So when we hear people in our community talking about people like Dr. Sebi and other pioneers who have dealt with that, that is a centralized part of their healthcare policy. So when we take a look at the National Medical Association's agenda, the Black Nurses Association's agenda, we're pushing them in the direction of Cuba. And Dr. Lucy Perez, who's the only NMA president in their illustrious history since 1896 to send a delegation to Cuba, she was at the press conference and she said she's going to work with us not only in her NMA capacity, but she's an AME pastor also. So we're talking about building stronger ties with the churches. where the National Council of Churches and the Cuban Council of Churches have a memorandum of understanding. So we should get all the churches in our community to build stronger ties with Cuba on the questions of health and the questions of education also. And we're doing this in honor of Assata Shakur and Pauline Lumumba, because Assata Shakur, being a Black Panther, people forget one of the shining examples of the Black Panthers' legacy were the free healthcare clinics. And Bilal Sunni Ali was the strategic advisor to the Assata Shakur Cuba Defense Campaign we had, because we were focusing on the health aspect. And many people forget when we say we are fighting for African liberation, we're not just fighting for liberation, we're fighting for our human dignity. We can't go through the decolonization process unless our human dignity is completely restored.
That's right.
Absolutely. Tony, jump in, and let's also lift up the fact, and go ahead and read that status.
Professor Tony was about to say something, Zaid.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I wanted Obi to go on something.
But
we also got this paradigm now where we, Venezuela's being militarily threatened, people being killed in the sea, right? We've got some dynamics on the hand that are new with this Trump edition of gunboat diplomacy on hand. What say you about what Cuba solidarity should look like coming from us now?
Well, I want to go back to what our good brother Obi has been talking about, and in many ways, what he's emphasized is a political strategy. In some ways, the ideological question is important, but what's the political strategy? I mean, how are we getting the churches and other organizations to do what they can do? And so that's the work that we have to do. See, this is the deal, right? You could go to Cuba, and the way you deal with the embargo is to go to Cuba, right? And organize people to go to Cuba and take resources and show solidarity, right? And so, but the question is, who are the Martin Luther King type churches, right? Go to those churches, organize those delegations, send them to Cuba to bring some glasses, bring some medicine, bring whatever it is it takes. So what's happening with Cuba now, and what you're raising about Venezuela, that's a global strategy, but it's a regional strategy, to get dominance over that particular area, because now they're see what China's been doing, right? And the struggle really is against China, because China is jacking them up, right? China is in terms of their solar energy, the electrical cars, the role they're playing in Africa and other places. And people might have issues with China, but the point is that China has a different method. They just go around dropping bombs on people and blowing ships up in the water. But what we have to do is that we need a strategy. And this is an honor, Sister Assata Shakur, right? Like, go to Cuba, but don't just go to Cuba, to send a Cuba Libre and a cigar, right? And have some rum. Go to Cuba and develop relationships with people in the community, so that the U.S. has waged economic warfare on Cuba. So even with the work they do in the hospitals, they don't have the kind of supplies, right? They don't have the things that they need. I was in touch with people this week in Cuba. Santiago was hit the hardest, right? It blew off people's rooftops and so forth. They're having a hard time. And in Guantanamo, I got folks in Guantanamo. They're having
very Afro-Cuban areas, by the way.
The electric, is going off and on. They haven't been out of school for a while because they've been having people volunteer to pick up the debris. And that's what Cuba is good for, around organizing to deal with that. But it's limit their capacity to produce. But more than that, because of the idea of them not being able to deal with banking, the money question, the inflation is just going up, and it's hitting the people very hard. So when we go, what little we bring is very helpful, but it's also important for the spirit of the people. When Brother Zaid went down with us last August, right?
Beautiful trip.
We went to Santiago, we went to Guantanamo. The people was excited, right? And lifts their spirit. But then when they're going through this by themselves, they're like, where's our friends at? Right. So I'm suggesting that we add on to what Brother Obi is saying. We intensify that, right? That, some of these revolutionaries out here, go to the church and talk to the people, right? Talk to the preacher, ask them what they're putting down to help the people out. You see what I'm saying? Go into the Mars, Go into the various, communities, when you go, take an extra suitcase with you. You know what I'm saying? Put some vitamins in there, put some clothes in there, whatever, and go to communities because they'll distribute. That's what we did. We went right into the hood.
That's exactly right.
Right into the hood, and we gave folks material, and they went door to door, gave folks different things, that could help them out. So we have to develop our strategy, a political strategy. And this way, then the people are calling on the Congressional Black Caucus and Black representatives say, what y'all doing around Cuba, our cousins, right? And so forth. So we have to find creative ways to be able to stand in solidarity, to talk about that, to educate people about that. Because if we don't do it, ain't nobody else going to do it.
I have to say this, and then we got to wrap up because we're up against the tyranny of the clock. I've already been sending people to you, expecting you to put out a call for papers and artwork.
I got it.
Right. So that needs to happen. We definitely got your back. I definitely will work with you all on that. All right. So as we go, with any final takeaways from each of you, and of course, Donna, you end up with the ritual question.
Well,
So,
no, I keep going. And I'm good to see, Brother Obi still sticking and moving. Just keep this. You know what I'm saying? It's like Roy Hargrove said in university. He says, keep moving.
So
we literally have 3 generations in this conversation too.
Yes.
Obi, Obi, can you spell? I actually attend the AME church, so I want to mention it to my pastor. Can you spell Dr. Lucy's last name for me?
Perez. Dr.
Perez.
Dr. Lucy Norville Perez, but
Norville Perez.
Perez, Dr. Perez. She's a medical doctor, and
Right.
we've been working with her for over 20 years.
Okay.
At the press conference you had Reverend Majani Deli from Plymouth United Church of Christ, who's on the Africa desk of United Church of Christ. And United Church of Christ was the first church in this country to have as their Sunday service the role of the church in normalizing relations with Cuba.
Awesome.
So these are working relationships that we've maintained. And like I said, the album we're doing, it's a follow-up to the album set that we did with M1 from Dead Prez 10 years ago. We did 3 albums of music called The Battle Cry for Cuba and Zimbabwe, where artists all over the world came together to call for the lifting of sanctions on Zimbabwe and the blockade on Cuba. And we had the #1 hip hop group in Venezuela, B2Aya, who claimed their Yoruba identity. They were part of that album. So this next album we're going to do, highlighting Assata's legacy and Pauline Lumumba's legacy, it will be a Pan-African compilation, cross-generational, multi-genre of artists focusing on Cuba's health. The only difference is we're focusing on their work in Africa because there's a network, there are networks, plurally, who focus on their needs on the island. But with them aggressively promoting their African identity, as they had the conference last December, the Peoples of African Descent's 10th anniversary conference was in Cuba, and they reaffirmed their commitment to Africa. And this whole year, they've honored Malcolm's 100th, Lumumba's 100th, and Frantz Fanon's 100th. So we felt it only made sense to begin to focus on their work in Africa to complement that as well. So it's no division, but because Africa is primary to us and Cuba is an extension of the African legacy, we're focusing on their health efforts. And Mukasa Dada's son, Dr. Abeku Dada, the first step we took, he was in Guinea-Bissau the whole month of August, working with their doctors in Guinea-Bissau, the land of Amilcar Cabral. And the students who graduated from the Latin American School of Medical Sciences have created an organization called the International Medical Society, where in the summers, they're going to be sending brigades to join those doctors. So we're going to sit down with the NMA and sit down with the Black Nurses Association to send brigades to those nations in Africa that we highlighted. So this is our focus. So bridging the gap between our work in the United States around Cuba, our work in the Caribbean around Cuba, because at our press conference was also Ambassador David Commerson, who's CARICOM's liaison to Cuba and is the Barbadian ambassador to CARICOM. So we're working stronger with the Caribbean nations, stronger with the African nations. And I'm the external relations officer of the Zimbabwe-Cuba Friendship Association.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And I was recruited into that organization by the highest ranking Cuban diplomat to be deported from the United States, His Excellency Cosme Torres Espinosa, under false charges of espionage. And his next assignment was to be the Cuban ambassador to Zimbabwe. And my third day, I popped up on him and shocked him, and he recruited me into that organization. So we are going to continue to do that work in Africa, but partner with the Caribbean and definitely partner with Africans in the U.S. And Tony himself witnessed the Pan-African response to Assata's project when we had the press conference, seeing children in Burkina Faso marching down the street with hands off Assata Shakur posters, seeing the Venezuelan government come out, seeing CARICOM come out. So we took Assata Shakur from a new African paradigm to a Pan-African paradigm, which is where she belongs. So we were proud we were able to do that, and we're going to continue to be able to do that. And you saw we brought the young people up because we're working with the younger people, and we're going to work with, and the children, and mass emphasis, these are teenagers who have already done an art show about Assata that we're about to put some music to. So we're working all the time. Students, artists, journalists, you name it, we're with them on the question of Cuba. And we have a friendly challenge saying that Cuba has more Pan-African potential as an issue than any other issue that we deal with. It's the only issue I can get Raz Baraka on the phone about right now, my brother of 30 years.
That's right.
Well, our last question, because the hour has come, and we want to thank you for being here.
I'm honored.
As you're doing the work that you do, and that you continue to do this work, can you tell us what hip hop artist, individual, or group that you listen to that keeps you inspired to do that work?
Wow. Well, lately I've been listening to a lot of Lupe Fiasco, but interestingly enough, and I'm gonna say this to put a smile on your face, when we started the Assata Shakur Cuba Defense Campaign, we met with Common because of the song he did 25 years ago. We met with Talib Kweli, we met with Killer Mike, and we met with the actor Orlando Jones. It was an emergency meeting that Talib Kweli called, by the way. And they all pledged a commitment to do some work with us around this work. And I also had a conversation with Cormega on Instagram. I showed him our poetry being done in Burkina Faso by children there. And he wants to eventually get together so we can do some work around that. So I function from the understanding of what Ahmed Sekou Touré said. To be part of the African Revolution, it's not enough to write a revolutionary song. You must fashion the songs with the people and they will come of themselves and by themselves. So we work with those artists. And I have a gift for you, battlecubazim.wordpress.com, which will give you access to the 3 albums we produced with M1 from Dead Prayers. Shout out to my man M1 from Dead Prayers. So I listen to all that, all of it.
Thanks, Obi and Professor.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just going to do 2. I'm going to say, comment with Assata and Public Enemy and Fight the Power.
Oh, there you go.
Brother,
all right.
There
Brother
Ed.
Thank you guys, and I apologize for my struggle with technology tonight. But I'm glad
your student showed improved. She filled in all the blanks.
And Obi, send me that link, Obi.
Oh, I got you for sure. I do. I'll
get that. Obi and Professor Tony, please consider yourself friends of the show, and don't wait for us to call you. If there's something that we need to know about, please reach out to us.
Sure, wonderful. Thank you. Right. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, Papa, so we got to get caught up on stuff too. We will.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We're good. Yeah.
All right, y'all.
We're full of scroll, Baba Lau.
We had a fast-moving show tonight.
Yes, Lord, it was.
It was a lot going on. So we just want to make sure we thank, of course,
everything except the pastrami sandwiches, right?
We definitely want to thank them brothers. Thank both of the brothers for coming on and doing Pastrami and Politics.
Rahaman, Alturrick,
We
yeah.
thank both of them for coming on, and then Zaid, we can thank all the other folks you had coming through.
Let's walk backwards. I don't even have Delaney's last name because he brought her on at the last minute, and I'm glad that he did. The senior from Howard University, Obi Egbuna, the Zimbabwe-Cuba friendship mission, Baba Tony, Professor Tony Menelik Vandermeer, a student of Queen Mother Moore at UMass Boston. Of course, we had Josie Gonsalves from Public Square Amplified. Their fourth anniversary is going to be the 11th at
the 5th or 4th?
No, the 11th. The 11th.
I said the 5th or 4th anniversary.
4th anniversary.
Okay.
Yeah, 4th anniversary at Clemens Place at 5:30. Linda Carter, of course, Professor Linda Carter, right? Always with her volume of stuff that we always try to cram in into little time, right? It was a loaded show all the way around,
And so we thank everybody for coming through tonight. We thank everybody for their contribution, of course, to the show. And as my brother Zaid always says, we'll catch y'all next week. Where's Zaid?
We'll see you in the whirlwind, and you don't stop.
The whirlwind.
Thank you for all the veterans as we come upon Veterans Day.
Yeah, and all of the veterans that